It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
You wanted this, right? You wanted the real deal? That's what this is. Wake up. You're in the middle of it.
You better wake up and listen to what you're saying.
Which is a morning show. Wake up.
What the hell? Wake up, everyone.
Yes. We are together again. Boy, the mic doesn't sound good. That can't be right. Mark Dykton hanging out with us. He is back producing today's effort. He's Kevin Bowen. I'm Andy Sweeney. It is the Wake Up Call, broadcasting live, as always, on this Wednesday from the DriveHubler.com studios. Everyone's looking at each other. That can't be good. The Pacers won.
I'd say switch mics.
Okay,
Switch mics.
How's that one? Any better? All right, there we go. The Pacers.
We're off and running now.
We're off and running. The Pacers snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Not some good news for the Colts and Julian Blackmon, and we'll be talking about it here on the program for the next 3 hours. KB, a good morning to you. Mark, a good morning to you. Welcome back, buddy. How's everything going?
Hello. Yes. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. Whether you were in town or out of town, I had a great one. Had a million things to bring home because the girls got, you tell your kids, no more toys. They have enough toys, and then everybody still gives them toys. And it's like, oh, here's a Barbie dream house. I'm like, oh, thanks. Get to put that away. Get to put that together now. 85 pieces.
Boy,
can't wait.
Ebenezer Scrooge there.
The Christmas cheer from Mark Dykton
I'm glad
today.
Mark had a just roaring Christmas.
Well,
maybe give away some of your old toys,
I
Mark,
know.
and then have plenty of room for the new and better if you want to go down that path.
It was one of those things where I was like,
You donate.
wow, this is the first Christmas morning where, there's no assembly required. I did it. We've made it. I don't have to do anything. And they went to my in-laws' house and here's a Barbie dream house. Here's this. And I was like, oh no, what are
get the
you
last
doing to
laugh
me?
on this one? Yes, good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back to Mark Dykton. I am Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney with us as always. Pacers get a win last night. We haven't said that, honestly, too often here in the month of December, especially here in the last couple of weeks as they, I guess, survive a little bit in Houston. It was a flurry of a close, but some shaky moments in that fourth quarter, to say the least, but much needed. And as Rick Carlisle, I think, pretty much promised to us, Andy, in the 9 o'clock hour yesterday, there would be lineup changes, and there were significant lineup changes, even to another level than I thought. And he threw that word into us when asked him about, okay, you lead the league in fouling, or you're a very high foul team. Why do you think that is? And the first part of that answer was well, we lack size. And so if you look at last night's lineup, it was a big change in size. It was Jalen Smith in the starting lineup with Miles Turner. We haven't seen that this season. It was, Aaron Nesmith for Buddy Hield. Those are very different size guys. And then obviously Bruce Brown is out due to injury. Starting lineup got off to a really nice start. But then Tyrese Halliburton got back to his old self, and to me, those are probably the two biggest takeaways from last night.
Well, this was at one point in the fourth quarter, KB. This was a loss, right? I mean, imagine if we walked in here this morning and they had lost that game and they didn't close 8-0 and they didn't get some key rebounds and they actually didn't get a couple big stops and Tyrese Halliburton didn't turn into the guy that we have seen the last couple weeks or so. If all those things didn't happen, they were going to lose to this middle of the road. Boy, I tell you, look at their roster and where they drafted. You think the Rockets even would be a little bit better. But Mark, you missed it yesterday. Carlisle dropped an S-bomb, and he gave us news. He gave us that Bruce Brown wouldn't play, and he gave us news. He was very ominous, was he not, KB? With the, oh yeah, and you'll see it soon. We were sitting here, we were thinking, wait a minute, are they going to make a trade here soon? It was so ominous the way that he was talking, and you see multiple changes. Listen, Jalen Smith, to me, that dude's earned everything, has he not? He's just a solid player.
Yeah, I thought, honestly, it was a nod to the two most consistent Pacers players not named Tyrese Halliburton this season.
I agree with you.
When you think about, not who the best players are on the team or whatever, the greatest defenders
or even
the
the highest
shooters.
upside guy, because I don't know if Jalen Smith has that.
Everyone to describe it, no, but if you just simply said who have been the most consistent contributors for you this season, again, outside of Halliburton, of course, you would say Jalen Smith and you would say Aaron Nesmith. Great third quarter last night. I mean, they were down at half, and as Andy said, they were down. I think it was 117 to 115 there.
It was. With a minute 50, they closed on an 8-0 run.
And then Miles Turner gets a great pass from Tyrese Halliburton, gets fouled to the line, ties it up at 117, and then Halliburton hits the three, which is the highlight you will see with the minute to go. It was very, I guess it's fair to say, vintage Halliburton, because he's made big shots before. Going to his right there, right in front of the Houston bench. And, the thing that Halliburton mentioned after the game to Jeremiah Johnson, which, kind of stands out to me too, Andy, is like, I think we've almost gotten used to Halliburton as a closer type. And honestly, the Pacers have got run off the floor so often here lately. They haven't been in very closing moments. But you know what? Halliburton's never done that in his career. Like
he talked about that post game.
Yeah, he was like, this
He's
wasn't
with the
me
Kings
at Iowa State. Like this wasn't me with Sacramento either. And you're always kind of curious, how will guys handle that aspect to it? It's a much different, style of pressure and defensive attention late in a game. And Halliburton hit the big shot last night, and the Pacers, I think, scored the final 8. And as Rick Carlisle pointed out, it's baby steps, but hell, you got to crawl before you walk. And if you look at it, that is now 4 straight games for the Pacers of holding their opponents under 120 points, which, as we've said all along with this defensive effort, we're not asking them to be, whatever, the steel curtain here. It is simply get to being a bad defensive team. You're horrific right now. Get to being bad. And lately, they've been like better than bad. And now it's okay. Can your offense continue to kind of be the catalyst, and can you start to turn around some of these losing trends you've had?
By the way, when do kids start to crawl? You mentioned you got to crawl before you walk. When do I need to be worried about that? I guess I need to learn these things. When did
so Gas was born in September, October?
Yeah, September.
I feel like you got a couple months.
You got a couple months?
Yeah.
Until it becomes crazy. You have to block off all the steroids.
It's the rollover.
Well, the rollover's happening right now. The rollover's just started within the last 3 days.
And then maybe like a moonwalk, like a scoop back.
Okay.
Is what I recall for the first steps there. And then Rosie walked on her first birthday, and Max walked at
that's like a dream. So it was
like 13 months.
It was birthday 1, and she's out there walking.
Literally.
That's
I know.
ridiculous.
I know. I was like,
yes,
oh my gosh, let me go get the tissues.
Our third youngest our youngest was walking at 9 months.
I like that. That's a brag.
She took a cue
I like
from
that.
the other two, seeing her sisters running around.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy. But yeah, then you have to baby-proof the house, and
which
why can't I open
obviously
the
isn't
toilet
done.
seat?
Listen, I didn't want to take us down a road there, but you just mentioned it. But last night, this was. You're at 2 minutes to go, and even Tyrese talked about it after the game. It's like, we had to kind of settle down, and the coaching staff and Carlisle and the assistants had to kind of settle us down. We're taking some shots, maybe not good shots in transition, and there's a time there where you're watching that, and you're like, I just feel like the Pacers are a much better team than the Houston Rockets, and they need to go and they need to just flat out win the game. And that was kind of my takeaway. And then the final 2 minutes, for them to outscore the Houston Rockets 8-0, end the game, a good feeling, and now you go to Chicago, and listen, I know Chicago, they're playing better basketball. We heard that yesterday, and I know they walked into Gamebridge and they beat the Pacers earlier in the season, but, there's no reason you can't go in and beat the Chicago Bulls, who are not a playoff team, who you should be better than all year, and kind of just get feeling good about yourself. I know it's a corny thing. This is pro sports. I understand it, but, the game's in the balance last night, and they won the game. And by the way, as far as the starting lineup goes, I have absolutely no problem. I don't even care too much about who's in the starting lineup. I think it does send a message, and I think sending a message is what matters. And I think also a guy like Jalen Smith, who has been solid, who has been, as you mentioned, KB, consistent. I'm all good with with someone new being rewarded. And that's why I'm not surprised about the changes that they made. And then we'll see when Brown comes back what they do with Nembhard and exactly how that works out. And, Isaiah Jackson still gets his minutes. Buddy Hield, 33 minutes. Benedict Mathurin had 24 minutes. He had an opportunity out there to get more minutes if he would have played a little bit better. And then the odd man out at times, don't you feel like, is going to be Obi Toppin. And I'm fine with that. If Jalen Smith has been better, and if Obi Toppin is going to take some wild shots, and we know he can dunk, what else can he do? That's been the rap on him all the way back when the Knicks took him. He didn't play a lot with the Knicks. I mean, this was his prove it year, so it's not like Obi Toppin is owed something in the NBA where he plays 32 minutes a game and gets a start for a playoff team. That's not the case. It's never been the case, and he plays 15 minutes and scores 7 off the bench, and there'll be nights where he has more, perhaps less, but I think it's a feel-good night for the Pacers. They had to get a win. We didn't want to walk in here today with them under 500, losing the last 2 minutes of the game and having the starting lineup, not kind of work out the first time through. I think it's a feel-good night with a pretty bleak Chicago team on the horizon.
Zach LaVine looks like he will continue to be out for the Bulls. Nikola Vucevic did not play last night. Andre Drummond did turn back the clock for the Bulls, and we know history with him and Miles Turner have not been good for number 33. I was curious if Jarris Walker would crack the rotation at all. We did not see that. T.J. McConnell was the odd man out. They did play 9. Obi Toppin got those bench minutes there. And the thing about it, and early on, it was kind of funny because, when you go to a lineup like that, obviously you are putting a little bit more size, probably a little bit more defense out on the floor. The question also, becomes when you do that, okay, are you going to shoot it well enough? Can you space the floor around Tyrese Halliburton enough? Because I don't think anybody looks at Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, or Jalen Smith and think dead-eye shooters. But yet, last night, every single guy in that starting lineup hit a 3 within the first 5 minutes of the game. The guys you label as more the streaky shooters hit them early. And Jalen Smith, that was the question last year when he was a starting 4-man is, could he be more of that stretch guy? He didn't show that last year. This year, he's been very, very good. So, lineup change there. And again, Tyrese Halliburton getting back to his all-star self. 33 points, 7 of 13 from behind the arc, 10 assists, just 3 turnovers. And when Dylan Brooks went out, that certainly helped out Halliburton there as he hits the go-ahead 3 with a minute to go, and the Pacers beat the Rockets last night in Houston.
He didn't skip, did he? I saw the bench.
See any skipping,
the bench did the skipping for him because I think of you now every time.
Yeah, I know, and I would love to see the Arthur skip become a staple for Tyrese Halliburton. A couple points to the crowd. He was very proud of his, I'd call it more of a half-ass box out of Aaron Holiday there late in the game that I think someone else got the rebound. I mean, watching Halliburton play defense and try to rebound, it is quite the effort on that end of the floor. In Colts news, they will get back to work today. It is a walkthrough, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but confirmation from the Colts. Julian Blackmon, he is on injured reserve, so if you want to get technical with that, Andy, that's 4 games, which means the AFC title game would be the earliest he could come back with that shoulder injury. I have always been a Blackmon guy. I am kind of bullish on the versatility, the reliability, the quarterback nature to the secondary that he brings. I think he's one of your more unheralded players. I don't think I could name maybe 6 or 7 guys that I would put as more important than him. I think he's easily in that top 10 group of most important Colts. And now it is a youth movement taken to another level in the secondary. Basically, when you go to your nickel personnel grouping, which is the dominant personnel package that NFL defenses play, Andy, it's Kenny Moore, it's 2 rookie corners, and it's 2 second-year safeties in Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas II. The good news is that's a youth movement, and you're going to play a youth movement here coming up the next 2 weeks as, all expectations are a rookie quarterback in Nate O'Connell and then a rookie in C.J. Stroud again.
I mean, him being out is just a massive deal. I mean, did you feel this? Did you feel that it was headed towards IR yesterday? I wasn't getting a good feel. I was hoped, though, he would be available for the playoff game, right? If they made the playoffs in 3 weeks, that he would be available. But it's serious enough where he's not. I heard Stephen Holder. He'll join us, by the way, coming up at 8 o'clock. Alex Golden will join us in the 9 o'clock hour as well. Holder was on with Query yesterday and was talking about, we'll see exactly if we find out how bad it is. But, the way he kind of walked off the field reminded him, holding his shoulder, a lot of Anthony Richardson and kind of what AR had been through. And this is now, you go from Nick Cross, who 3 weeks ago, KB, we were talking about what does this guy need to do to earn snaps? And then he gets a few snaps and now he's full-blown going to get the majority, right? I mean,
he's going to play every snap.
Yeah, he's going to be in the game, if not every snap, damn near close to every snap. So, like, within not even a month, within about 3 weeks, we have went from what does Nick Cross, I mean, Gus Bradley fielded these questions. What does Nick Cross need to do to play? And now we're sitting here saying, we hope he's ready. 3 weeks later, we hope he's ready because it's going to be 100% of the snaps. I mean, not to mention Blackman, he's been great this year. 4 interceptions? I think I saw the tally was 88 tackles. I mean, he's been one of the better players. And you have to think, I mean, how many more games are we going to see of him in the Colts uniform?
Yeah, he is a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair as well. He much like Michael Pittman Jr., have excelled here on these contract years. So I have been cautiously optimistic on Tuesdays and Wednesdays going into, as we get ready for the next Colts game. I do not feel that way right now with the defensive effort we saw from the Raiders, with some of the defensive back numbers that they have put up, with Michael Pittman very touch and go. Even if he gets cleared on a Friday, that doesn't mean he plays on a Sunday. And then you throw Julian Blackman out there, and that's a massive, I mean, you say top 10. I mean, I think it's fair, top 6, 7, most important guy on the team, and he's not going to be here probably the rest of the season.
Yeah, he had played the most snaps of any Colts player entering that game on Sunday against Atlanta. And, I'll share it in a little bit. And I know I've talked about it before, but, I'll never forget when Gus Bradley took the job a few years ago, and he actually talked with Phillip Rivers about some of the Colts personnel. And, one of the guys that really stood out to Rivers in just 1 year in Indianapolis was Julian Blackman. Wasn't DeForest Buckner, wasn't necessarily Shaq Leonard, wasn't necessarily Kenny Moore's the first name that popped into Rivers' head. It was, boy, they got this rookie safety from Utah coming off a torn ACL in the Pac-12 title game, and that was the one that really struck Rivers. So I think at times when you look at safeties, sure, there is some playmaking that matters, but, over the course of 60, 70 snaps, there are a lot of quiet plays that go unnoticed by safeties that simply is just maybe getting guys lined up right. And that last-second check that saves a busted coverage leading to a big play over the top, and now all of a sudden that responsibility goes to Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas II. So, again, the good news is you're playing very youthful quarterbacks. Granted, C.J. Stroud has obviously been really good, but still, I think that is something certainly to keep an eye on as the Colts get ready to take on the Raiders. So it is a walkthrough for the Colts today. A couple other items to note. And, something I want to throw Steven's way when he joins us, Stephen Holder again at 8 o'clock. Braden Smith just missed a 7th game of this season. Maybe it's because he was picked one spot after Shaquille Leonard, but a thought that I've been asked a lot here in the month of December, is the two situations similar in any way? Do you look at what happened with Leonard contractually? Do you look at now what's happening with Braden Smith injury-wise? Are there similarities? Are there differences with these two situations? Because as you look ahead to Sunday, Max Crosby is one of the most disruptive edge guys in all of football. And again, similar to TJ Watt, he lines up primarily opposite that right tackle. So Braden Smith knee watch, again, of utmost importance as the Colts get back to work here in a bit. Again, Stephen Holder at 8, Alex Golden at 9. Recapping a Pacers victory, diving into a big one for the Colts coming up Sunday with the Raiders. Good Wednesday morning. Thanks for spending it with us. It is the Wake Up Call, KB and Andy, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Down. Omaha! On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, morning check down, 123-117, your final last night. Pacers on the road and winners in Houston. 15-14 on the season are the Indiana Pacers. Everyone pretty happy last night. Here's Rick Carlisle on the win.
Well, what a great game. Super competitive, tons of action, a bunch of lead changes, a lot of high-level players out there. Real proud of our guys. Halftime deficit, big third quarter. Fourth game in a row, we've kept teams under 120. That's a really good sign. You know, there was some really high-level playmaking. I thought Nembhard leading the second unit was key in the third, and then Tyrese, made some great plays to finish the game.
Yeah, 15 lead changes in the game. Halliburton hit a three when it was tied with a minute to go, and then Nembhard iced it with a floater after that. The starting lineup changes that Rick Carlisle certainly hinted at with us earlier yesterday did come to fruition. We knew Bruce Brown was out due to injury, so Andrew Nembhard in for him. But the other two, benchings and new starters, it was Aaron Nesmith in for Buddy Hield, and it was Jalen Smith in for Obi Toppin. Early on, Pacers got off to a great start, and they played 9 guys. T.J. McConnell, an odd man out, and all 9 of them had at least 7 points. So, individually it seemed like for night one, not too many growing pains with a new look. Not only starting lineup, but obviously the rotation is impacted as well.
Yeah, but I'm kind of bothered by one thing. We only got one kind of Dylan Brooks moment last night. I mean, he had the.
Is that when he kind of stood over him and then picked him up full court, Halliburton?
Yeah, he had the stare down in the stand over. Did Dylan Brooks of Tyrese Halliburton, and I saw people complaining, and rightfully so. I don't like to do the officiating show, but. I mean, how many technicals have we seen in the NBA where a guy looks at another guy and they tee him up? And Dylan Brooks, who's like the repeat offender of all repeat offenders, who's not named Draymond Green, stands over the star of the Indiana Pacers.
Well, I think he was also picking him up full court would be.
Which I'm fine with it. I think they're too ticky-tacky. I love this stuff, but that's the only hijinks we got from Dylan Brooks last night.
Leaving the game was a huge reason why the Pacers won. I think if Dylan Brooks doesn't leave early due to injury, the Pacers might have lost that one. So 123-117 now coming up. It'll be in Chicago tomorrow night against Zach LaVine. Not playing for the Bulls right now, and Nikola Vucevic banged up. Speaking of teams that cannot win whatsoever, cheers to the Detroit Pistons. Last night was 27 in a row. You would think, for the city of Detroit, in order for the Lions to be good, this is what had to happen.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, listen, that's fine.
And I think they would sign up for that.
I think they would sign up for it. No, to kill off one team for the other to be good? Sure, you'll do that.
2 things are amazing to me about this Piston streak. Well, I guess 3. First off, I don't think they have horrific talent. Like this is not like the Sixers process from, a decade ago. 2, they started the year 2-1. They lost to the Heat in Miami, was their one loss by 1 point. Can you imagine? Oh, that's a nice start to the year. We might challenge for a play-in spot. Since then, it's been 27 straight losses. And lastly, I saw the note last night. It's incredible. The Arizona Diamondbacks have a win more recently than the Detroit Pistons. Oh, my God,
that's a great stat. That's a fantastic stat. And, Monty Williams isn't a bad coach.
No, he's a Notre Dame guy.
I'm not saying
I like him.
I'm not saying, well, of course you do. Oh, do you like him?
I love him.
Has Notre Dame shunned him yet? Well, he went
shunned
here.
Him? What?
But, this is going to be what he's known for now. When are they going to win? And I hate doing this, but they have Boston next. There ain't no way in hell they're beating Boston.
So the record for a spanning multiple seasons is 28. So Boston would tie it tomorrow night, and then the Raptors.
And then they have at Houston, who we just saw.
Can they beat the Raptors?
Can they beat the Raptors? Can they win in Houston? Can they win in Utah? Because if they don't do that, my man, Washington on January 15th. Again, today is the 27th of December. I'm talking about January 15th.
You're about to have the Diamondbacks. Pitchers and catchers are about ready to report for the Diamondbacks.
And I saw Pistons fans run like a Reddit thread, and they're like, we're so bad, but who are we tanking for? Like, who's the top NBA draft prospect?
Again, they've got, Kate Cunningham and, Jaden Ivey, and they took one of the Thompsons, and I know I'm forgetting somebody else they've drafted high. Jalen Duren, I think, has had some moments for him. Is James Wiseman a total bust? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Kevin Knox is on that team. I don't know. They have a team where you're like, damn, that team would have been good in college.
They should not.
That team would have been a 2 seed.
No one should be this bad, let alone 20, whatever it is in a row, 27 in a row. All right, Colts again. They've got to walk through today. It'll be practice Thursday, Friday, and then they will end the season with 2 home games. It'll be the Raiders coming up. That is a 1 o'clock kick on Sunday afternoon. The big news item from yesterday, Julian Blackmon, the guy that had played the most snaps of any Colts player entering Sunday. His season very much in jeopardy. He's on injured reserve, which means at least 4 weeks out. So that would take him up until the AFC title game if the Colts do make the playoffs. You know, it is interesting, Andy. The Colts have had some injuries, but Blackmon is really the first notable Colt to go on injured reserve. Colts really haven't put anybody on injured reserve.
Right. Braden Smith could have, you know, a month ago gone on injured reserve, but he hasn't. Yeah,
like in multiple months. I mean, I almost go back to Anthony Richardson for the last, notable Colt player on IR. Dallas Flowers, of course, early in the season, but they really have not had that too often. So this will mean a lot more of Nick Cross alongside Rodney Thomas II, and I'll be curious to see if Aiden O'Connell or C.J. Stroud can test continued youth and inexperience playing in the Colts secondary.
Let me give you some Gus Bradley. Here's Gus yesterday, why the coaching staff has confidence in Cross.
Well, I like his mindset. I don't know if I could have said that last year. I don't know if there was complete trust with him out on the field, but now there is trust, and he's going to get his chance to show us. He's going to get a chance to show his teammates. So he's a better communicator at the free safety spot. Now he just has to transfer that to the strong safety spot.
Again, 4 interceptions, 88 tackles for Blackmon on the season. You feel bad for him. You feel bad for the Colts. A substantial injury here as they head into the final couple weeks of the season.
All right, Stephen Holder going to join us coming up here at 8. We haven't really given too much of a rundown on it, so I do feel like we're kind of in a little bit more of it this week, and that would be bowl season. Today you've got 4 of them for those that care, and you know what one of the bowl games is today.
Let's go. Is it Notre Dame?
No. Friday.
That's
for the Irish.
Okay. What is it? Give it to me. I have no idea.
What I need this afternoon is I need mayo on Mac Brown.
Oh, my God. Today's the Mayo Bowl?
I need Mac Brown doused in mayo.
Oh, man. I should have brought the mayo. We could have, put it in the coffee. You got fancy coffee today?
I remember Mike Loxley getting doused in mayo recently.
Oh, yeah.
That was just a great sight, great image to see. I need Mac Brown. How old is Mac Brown?
It's got to be every bit of, mid-70s, early 70s? Yeah, he's got to be early 70s.
And that's got to be a look in the mirror moment of, if you have a chance to go for a big 4th down late, you think, wait, is this really worth it?
Did you see the Pop-Tart Bowl?
I love the trophy.
So for people that don't know, they have a big trophy. It's whatever. The Pop-Tart Bowl, and they have Pop-Tarts like silver, gold Pop-Tarts on the side, but on the top they have slots like a toaster to where you can throw in the Pop-Tart.
It's awesome.
It's something, yeah.
Now, s'mores or brown sugar? What's the best Pop-Tart?
Well, I think people would go with the traditional ones. They'd go with the strawberry. I think that's where
strawberry over s'mores or brown sugar.
Well, listen, I love s'mores.
What?
So I'm not saying it's me. I'm just saying I feel like the majority of people would go with
strawberry.
strawberry.
I'm gonna put some fruit in my Pop-Tart here.
Well, it makes you feel better about yourself, right?
Well, yeah.
This is fruit extract. That's what it is.
The Military Bowl, Vatech, Tulane, UNC, West Virginia, and the Mayo Bowl. There are probably a lot of West Virginia fans that would sneak some mayo into that bowl game and dump it on themselves. Louisville and USC in the Holiday Bowl, and then A&M and Oklahoma State, old Big 12 matchup. In the Texas Bowl. Tomorrow we'll get the baseball stadium bowls.
Yes,
Fenway,
we will.
Pinstripe, along with the Pop-Tarts. And as we said, Friday's really, I think, when things pick up some pace. You got Notre Dame, you got the Cotton Bowl, Missouri, Ohio State. So you got a pretty good slate.
I don't know, is DJ Ungaleye, never can say his name, is he playing for Oregon State against your Fighting Irish?
What do you think?
I guess not. I mean,
This is opt-out central.
It's not only is it opt-out central, and I know we got to take a break. I sound 100 years old saying this, that it kind of almost frustrates me. I don't care if guys play in bowl games, but then there's like the bowl game that you actually want to see, right? Like, I'd love to see this matchup. It's a non-traditional matchup that we never get to see. Like,
tonight, I'd love to see Louisville and USC.
Sure, but it's worthless. The game's worthless. I mean, the top Louisville guys aren't playing. Their quarterback he stinks, and Caleb Williams isn't playing. I mean, all the 5-stars have left USC, but even like it used to be, the big ones they'll play. I mean, the Orange Bowl, Florida State. I mean, the guy who's going to play in the game at quarterback is like, nah, I'm gone. Georgia has a bunch of guys that have already left. Ohio State is dealing with that in their bowl game as well. This is, I think, the first time I feel like the numbers of transfers and guys that have left the program have crept now into the big bowl games, not just the Music City Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah, and speaking of transfers, Purdue's top pass rusher,
that's a big one.
Nick Scorton, to the transfer
That's
portal.
a big one.
So they could be losing. Well, they have lost their top wideout from last year, and now could be their top defender as well. A big season for him last year.
He's from Texas, right?
Captain, I believe so.
So he's going to go to Texas A&M or somewhere like that. I mean, that's where the NIL money is.
For Purdue since Ryan Kerrigan, 10 sacks, 28 quarterback hurries, big games against Michigan and Ohio State. And it's kind of late now. I mean, we've felt like we kind of got out of the wave of the portal guys. So a big loss there for Ryan Walters and company. All right, on the other side, how big of a loss is Julian Blackmon and the Colts? A very high missed tackling number yesterday, or excuse me, I should say over the weekend. What can they do this week to work on that? Chat about that. Stephen Holder joining us at 8, Alex Golden at 9. It's the Wake Up Call. KB and Andy on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Pacers are in.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, reminder coming up in about 20 minutes. Stephen Holder will join us from ESPN, ESPN.com. Always love talking with him. You know, Mark was playing some heavier rock there as intro music, and it made me think of the difference between him and Elijah, who was in yesterday. And, Mark, I do need to tell you, Elijah was wearing his brand new Packers gear yesterday to infest your producer seat. So I figured you would want to know that.
I need to go find some Febreze.
I almost brought some Lysol into the DriveHuber.com studio for you. So I figured these are the things that happen when you're not in. Another producer is wearing Packers gear.
I really liked
around.
Elijah, too. That's very disappointing.
It was kind of cute yesterday. KB goes, yeah, I don't think the Packers are going to make the playoffs. I was like,
oh,
yeah,
you think so?
I was like, yeah, I don't think they are, man.
They barely beat the Panthers.
I was like, I don't
aren't they only a game out?
Well, you know.
They're not making it.
Who isn't a game out? It seems like everyone except for, the New York teams are a game out. But I found that funny as well. Speaking of being a game out, can I ask you guys this? And I know, listen, the tackling stuff, I want to get to that. Julian Blackmon out. It's a big deal. The Pacers snatching a win, perhaps, from the jaws of defeat yesterday. I don't know if today, tomorrow, I'm trying to find out, this Colts season has been so up and down because it was so predicated on, don't worry about the wins, worry about Anthony Richardson. And we saw that like game one. It was a great example against Jacksonville. And so, now fans want to make the playoffs, even though I think people understand they're not going to make a super deep run, but you never can have that magical run if you don't simply make the playoffs, right? Like you got to get in before you make the magical run. I heard maybe it was JMV talking about this yesterday. Actually, it wasn't JMV because he was off. It was Jake then making the point of, this team can get in and they can win a game in the postseason. Hell, the Giants and Daniel Jones won a road playoff game last year. So if this team gets in, no doubt do I think they could go scare the hell out of somebody or go win a game. I do. KB, for you, I'm asking, but I'm asking. I'm just trying to figure out, like, fans, because the hey, go get a high draft pick is out the window at this point. And if you were to lose the last two games or even lose one of the last two games, even if it's Sunday against the lowly quarterback Raiders or if it's against what may be your new rival in the AFC South, especially if C.J. Stroud is back, you lose that game, there's going to be real big disappointment. So I can't tell, like, if the Colts make the playoffs, are fans going to feel that it's such a substantial step that they believe next year they should really be competing? Or was this all happening because of circumstances, because of a schedule, because of the quarterbacks that you played on a schedule? Is it that? So, like, what's the long term if the Colts make the playoffs? And I guess I would ask on the flip side, what's the long and short term if they don't make the playoffs? Will we throw out the good if they don't make the playoffs and focus on year number 7, you're rebuilding with Chris Ballard and you still don't make the playoffs? I texted you this yesterday. I'm trying to figure out what the psyche of the fan base is that has been told don't believe in wins and then kind of believe in wins and then, well, no, really believe in wins because you could go make the postseason and go perhaps win a game and kind of get back to who the Colts have, been under Andrew Luck, under many years with Peyton Manning. Does that make sense? Do you have a concrete answer? Do you think there is a concrete answer within the Colts fan base?
Well, probably not. I mean, again, to me, the Richardson storyline is the one that superseded everything else entering the season. For myself, I need to see nothing in the final 2 weeks to exit 2023 thinking Shane Steichen is well-positioned, or the Colts should feel very well-positioned with Shane Steichen leading things moving forward.
Right. I think I'll feel that way.
I don't need to see a collapse, whatever, to the Raiders and the Texans, so be it. I still have seen a lot of good amidst a lot of chaos around him. That makes me, again, and I think Colts fans should feel very optimistic about what he can do moving forward.
So it's not as big of a deal to you.
Now,
some Colts fans would see it as a massive deal. They did not make the playoffs now.
Okay, would it be disappointing? Yeah, I think both could be true. What would be disappointing about it? Well, think about it. You've lost to P.J. Walker, Jake Browning, and Taylor Heineke. And if you're going to miss the playoffs, you would, maybe lose to a rookie quarterback.
Right.
And again, C.J. Stroud, to me, labeling him as a rookie quarterback is probably unfair. But, at the start of the year, if you were to say you'd have quarterback matchups of Gardner Minshew versus P.J. Walker, Gardner Minshew versus Jake Browning, Gardner Minshew versus Taylor Heineke, you would like to think that at the very least, you go 2-1 in those games. And you're 0-3 in those games. And right now, those are 3 games you point to. 2 of them, you've been run off the field. Cincinnati and Atlanta. Obviously, Cleveland, the whistle did not go your way late. And at the same time, you let P.J. Walker drive, 60-some yards on you.
You gave him free field goals,
Before
two or three free field goals by turnovers. You let Myles Garrett ruin you in your end zone. You're taking a 7-step drop with Gardner Minshew.
So, again, I think you would have disappointment in that. I mentioned yesterday, it's disappointing when you're losing to kind of like-minded teams that, in Atlanta's case, they don't even have as much to play for as you do. And it's not that you lost. Again, you got outclassed on Sunday in several facets that should be held to a higher standard. Your O-line and your defense are not backup quarterbacks. That group, those units, should be graded on a tougher scale, and they were thoroughly outplayed. So I think you could have some, present tense, if you will, whatever, short-term disappointment in that. But big picture, again, you feel optimistic about Shane and Anthony Richardson and the operation moving forward while still knowing that this is a rebuild. And you need to make sure that pieces are added, both sides of the ball from that. You almost group Steichen and Ballard in 2 different camps because, first off, their regimes span much different, time frames. At the end of the day, the Colts are in a rebuild in year 7 of their GM. That's not good. That's not a ringing endorsement of Chris Ballard at all. So that, I think, is disappointing. And obviously, if you were to miss the playoffs, then it'd be no division titles.
What if you make
in his 7 years?
How does that change things? If are fans gonna are they gonna be happier with Ballard, and B, are they then going to expect a better season next year?
I think expectations would be high no matter what.
They would remind me of the Giants, who made the postseason and it put a mask over. Hey, it's a good team. They come back the next year, and it's like, it's not that good of a team.
Right. I think expectations are going to be high no matter what. But again, you point to the Vikings, you point to the Giants. They're perfect examples of just because you had opening year success with a new head coach doesn't guarantee this linear line moving forward. The schedule is going to be tougher. You do have now a year's worth of film on Shane Steichen. I was trading texts yesterday with a listener, Zach, who does just a great job in observing the Colts and always kind of puts interesting thoughts in my mind. And he was kind of asking me this question of do you find it odd that the Colts seem to lose to the offensive head coaches but beat the defensive head coaches? And it's a really interesting trend if you look at the schedule. They pretty much have beaten all the defensive coaches on their schedule, whether it's Tomlin or Bowles
Ryans,
or Vrabel or Harbaugh, more special teams, but still, again, a lot of those coaches.
Oh, Bill Belichick.
And then the offensive coaches, whether it is Arthur Smith or whether it is Zach Taylor or Doug Peterson beating you twice.
Well, that's a great point. The only outlier is Carolina, but they're the outlier because they're that bad.
Right, and then I think Dennis Allen is maybe the only defensive coach that has beaten you. So it's just kind of an odd trend that you're going to get to at the end of the year. And,
that's a good point.
That you look at. So, again, I think no matter what happens these final 2 weeks, there should be optimism moving forward. But the optimism does not guarantee 2024 success.
Right.
The schedule is going to be tougher.
They're 2 separate things.
There is going to be.
People can't remember that, though.
Better
They're 2
quarterbacks.
separate things.
And, you have examples. The Vikings and the Giants, again, are perfect examples. Of that.
Yep.
So I think in the here and now, in the short term, same thing goes for the Pacers, Andy. When we have been in this market for the last handful of years, and the teams that you root for the most, Colts and Pacers, have had such a lack of either playoff appearances or playoff success, you want the taste of it. You want to get back to that. I mean, Lucas Oil Stadium, which it's still possible, has not hosted a home playoff game since January, 2015?
Yeah. It's very possible.
It's about to be January 2024.
It's very possible, though.
So, I mean, that taste you're missing. And if you're someone in my age group, okay, I just turned 34 years old a few months ago. In this market, I'm used to home playoff games for the Colts. I'm used to perennial playoff appearances. And again, obviously, if you get a little bit older, they lived through the 80s and 90s where it was a struggle to make the postseason. And then if you look at the Pacers, and we've talked about it, 6 years without a playoff win, 9 years without a playoff series win. That's a long time.
It's a long time
for the Pacers franchise. So I think you can have the short-term disappointment while still realizing there is long-term optimism there, even if it's really going to sting potentially here in the next couple weeks if things go the other way.
I'm trying to get a good gauge of where everybody is because I don't know. Second half they were playing so bad. Everyone's like, just screw it, just forget about the two games. And I know it's Twitter during a game, but I'm like, y'all understand? Like right now you're drafting 20th. If you lose a couple games, that's going to go up to like 17th. Like we're beyond that. To me now, it's hey, go make the playoffs, ruin someone's season, try to ruin someone's day, try to go into someone else's stadium.
Now, I would disagree
do what they
on
need
that.
to do.
I think draft position does matter. When you look at trades and drafts in let's just say, whatever, the Colts win their final game of the season, instead of drafting 16th, they draft 20th. If you look at what it would take from trade to 20th to 16th, that could be a Julian Blackmon.
It could be some capital.
That could be a Bobby
you're right.
Okereke. I'm trying to think of like third-round picks the Colts have had. So is it the end-all, be-all? No. And obviously there are misses that could involve there. But, if you talk about draft position and you talk about a handful of spots in round one, and you talk about a trade of a handful of spots in round one, that is very significant. Look at right now a team that no one wants to play. That would be Buffalo. When Buffalo traded up to get Josh Allen, they traded up twice. I think the first time it was like from 20 to 12, and then the second time from 12 to 7. That's a massive trade up to get, obviously, their franchise quarterback. So the draft's a crapshoot. You never know how it's going to turn out. And obviously there's plenty of drafts where the 23rd pick is better than the 16th or 17th pick. I'm not saying that, but I'm not one of these that say just because you aren't in Marvin Harrison's sweepstakes means draft position doesn't matter. Because I look at it and think, if I get the choice for the second wideout in this draft class,
right,
sign me up. Whereas all of a sudden, if 17 to 22 becomes, hey, the second and third and fourth wideout, we're taking at pick 17, pick 19, and pick 20, and you're sitting there at 22, and now you're getting the fifth choice at wideout. And again, it's what's left on the shelf for you, not you making the selection, not you walking to the gas station and saying, no, I want that Reese's. It's you walking in and saying, here's your Mike and Ike's, and take it or leave it. That, to me,
I ate so many Mike and Ike's.
Is a little different.
Over the Christmas.
Rosie got one in her
my
stocking.
God.
Is this a good thing? I don't know.
You don't like Mike and Ike's?
I don't know if I'm the biggest Mike and Ike's fan.
That's fine. Yeah, I have no problem with that. But, I'll crush a box. I have no problem. I guess here's my point with all this.
Should Rosie crush a box? I mean, she's 3.5.
Probably not. Tell her that fat radio guys do. She doesn't want to be that. I guess my thing is we are beyond. We're picking, hey, could they go 20th, 22nd, or like 17th? We're beyond the, hey, you're going to be near the top. You're going to be 10th. You're going to be 9th. You're going to be 12th. I guess that's what I was getting at.
And I know
you're beyond that. Now you're all playoffs ahead to me. And hey, go do as well as you can this season.
And again, I'm probably a little bit in the minority, but I hear so many people just write off draft position. I'm like, well, I don't totally, I don't totally. Abide by that, agree with that. I do think it matters, and particularly when you execute trades, and what it would cost to trade up or even trade back, and help bolster. Which trade back is probably what you have to think of with Chris Ballard. Again, something I want to throw Stephen Holder's way when he joins us here in a few is that Braden Smith, Shaquille Leonard similarity. Maybe because they were taken right next to each other in that 2018 draft. They both obviously have battled injuries through the last couple of seasons. I think their play on the field has been different, though, when healthy. I think that might be the difference. But that's something that I will throw to Stephen's way.
What's your level of worry, then, with Braden Smith? I feel like it's creeping up every week that he doesn't play, and it becomes... I don't know if we'll say glaring, but it becomes obvious that they need him. It's even more obvious they're going to have to run the football to win some games.
Oh,
whether it's
question.
playoffs the last 2 weeks, against the Raiders, whatever it may be, they're going to have to do that.
How about this?
And I'm kind of scared right now with what we're seeing from the line.
18 games. You look at the last 18 games of Jonathan Taylor. He's got 100-yard rushing game. 18 is a big sample size for Jonathan Taylor.
It tells me Chris Ballard, whether he drafts 17th or 22nd, might be drafting an offensive lineman.
Now,
that's what it tells me.
That one game in the last 18 for Jonathan Taylor over 100 did come last year against the Raiders, if you're looking for some optimism for Sunday, the lone win of the Jeff Saturday era. All right, Stephen Holder, he joins us next here. It's a wake-up call with KB and Andy.
The Colts today have given up 5 sacks.
The Falcons. and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us here, 8 o'clock hour, hanging out in the DriveHuber.com studio. We were just talking during the break. KB's going to be on remote the next 2 days. Big family outing in Florida.
So, Marathon, Florida.
All the I don't know if it's all the Bowens, which side of the family
all
it is.
All the lovers,
okay.
the in-laws.
We're all going to be there, so he's going to have a lot of fun there. We're super busy. Reminder, coming up on Sunday at 9 a.m., our pregame coverage beginning, Colts and Raiders. And boy, that one is going to mean a lot. And to talk about that game and all the happenings in the Colts world, we talk with Stephen Holder here, 8 o'clock hour on a Wednesday. Stephen joins us from ESPN.com and on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, happy holidays. Good morning. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Happy holidays to everybody as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. We always do appreciate it. Well, let's jump right to it. The Julian Blackmon injury, off to IR, 4 games. He would not be back unless, of course, the Colts make the AFC Championship game. Generic question here. How big of a loss do you think it is? And, boy, Nick Cross went from almost no snaps to playing all the snaps, and I would imagine a lot of pressure is going to be on him the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually a bigger loss than people might expect. Now, they're fortunate that Nick Cross has gotten some playing time, and that's a little bit of a softer blow because at least you have something there in him. But I also think that Julian Blackmon is a little bit of an underappreciated player. You know, and safeties tend to be that way anyway, unless they have tons of interceptions or defensive scores or what have you. And he doesn't have that. I mean, he has 4 interceptions, but I mean, he doesn't have the Kenny Moore game, the 2 pick sixes or that kind of thing. But that being said, his role is very important. And I think he's just a really dependable, solid player who tackles well, who's in position, who understands the scheme and is just someone the coaches really rely upon. So, it's one of those things. Sometimes it doesn't show up until he's not there. And so I'm interested to see, how they handle this loss because I actually happen to think it's a fairly big loss.
I would say, just as a quick follow-up, Blackmon being a free agent, how high on the priority list do you think he is for this team in the offseason? Any way to know?
It's a great question. It's a little bit hard to know because they're all sort of interrelated, it depends on, how much the other guys cost and what you can get in free agency at other positions and how you rank those positions. So I think it kind of depends. But I also think we'll know maybe a little bit based on what we see the next couple of weeks, to be completely honest with you.
Sure.
If those safeties are a mess, well, it's going to make Julian Blackmon look a lot more valuable. So we'll see. I do think that you can retain Julian Blackmon for a very reasonable price, even though he is a good player. That position, not a high-paid position. He's certainly not an all-pro type player necessarily. So I think they could work something out. If they really want Julian Blackmon, I think he'll be here. So we'll learn how much they like him, I think, pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a great point. Grover Stewart's agent, Michael Pittman Jr.'s agent, they had to like how the Colts played with their clients not on the field here recently. We'll see if Julian Blackmon's agent falls into the same boat. I want to go back to Sunday just quickly, Stephen, before we move on. Again, Stephen Holder with us, ESPN. More disappointed in the defensive effort or the offensive line effort?
That's a great question. I would have to say, I think the offensive line effort was disappointing to me, just because they had played so well the previous week. I don't know that we had seen them play better this year, And Jonathan Taylor's numbers, they're going to look bad on paper, but I mean, if you watch the game, you really watch closely. I mean, there was nowhere for him to run. I really put it on the offensive line. In fact, I said this to the midday guys yesterday. I felt like there were runs early in that game where I said to myself, I have no idea how Jonathan Taylor got 4 yards right there. And I just think about the difference from the previous week against a Pittsburgh front that, at least in name, has some guys. And they just manhandled them against Pittsburgh. And here against Atlanta, the Colts are getting pushed around. I was flabbergasted by that. I do not understand it. And it's part of the frustration with this Colts team in general. It's just the inconsistency overall. Look, I'm not killing them. That's just kind of what we thought they were. But when they play really well at times, you're like, okay, well, you have it in you. We know you can do it. And then you have a Cincinnati game, you have an Atlanta game, and I just think sometimes teams that are overachieving, I have felt this way for a while, but when they win 5 out of 6, you kind of reevaluate. But I've felt this way for a while. Teams that are overachieving, they're kind of predisposed to these disparate results, where they're like, man, are they good? Are they not good? Well, they're maybe just okay, and they're overachieving. So maybe that's what they are. I don't know.
And Stephen Holder's with us here from ESPN. Stephen, sticking with the offensive line here for just a second. They were obviously drafted next to each other. I think in a way, they've been two guys that have, battled injuries, maybe more so than any other Colts players in the last couple of years. That would be Shaquille Leonard and Braden Smith. Do you see any similarities to their situations? Obviously, Shaq let go by the team, a few weeks ago. Certainly a financial implication there. Braden Smith makes a lot of money as well. Do you see any similarities in regards to how the Colts handled Shaquille Leonard and what they possibly might do with Braden Smith?
Look, I mean, excuse me. There's the difference is pretty clear, which is that one player had a long-term thing that they did not feel optimistic about getting better. I guess it was a long-term major injury. With Braden Smith, it's been this, it's been that, it's been another thing. It's been a variety, I should say.
It's not nerve damage in his back.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, yes, I totally get what you're saying. And I will tell you that have there been conversations about, like, what do we do with Braden Smith in the long term? Sure. That has happened. And I'm not suggesting that any kind of decision whatsoever is going to be made now. I'm not saying that, or even in the coming offseason. I have no idea. But, I mean, if you ask people over there, like, hey, is this an issue? They say yes, because it is. It is an issue. And I'm not killing Braden Smith. He's really good. And when he plays, his presence is felt. But he's missed a lot of time. And at minimum, next year is a massive year for him, at minimum. But you are correct. I mean, the money is starting to matter more. I get that they have a ton of cap space. I get that. Well, they're about to spend a ton of money, too. That's the thing people forget. I mean, this is not going to be some free agent bonanza this offseason because they have a lot of money to spend. I mean, they have a lot of deals to get done. I mean, their free agent list is pretty significant. So I think when you get to that situation, you have to kind of, I don't want to say pick and choose, but you gotta really take a hard look at some things and maybe make some hard decisions. And I don't know if they're there yet. I really don't. But I do think that he's 17, 18 million a year.
Right.
Are they getting that kind of production when he's not out there for half the season or more? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think a restructure makes sense. I would just say the differences for me in this situation, Stephen, is level of play. I think when Braden Smith is out there,
that is true.
He's playing at a very high level. When Shaq Leonard was out there, he was not playing at that level. And then also the depth chart. There's no EJ Speed at right tackle, in my opinion. Blake Freeland, I think, has had a decent rookie season. Sunday probably being his worst moment. But I don't think I'd be ready to hand the keys to Blake Freeland and say, here you go, starting right tackle in year 2. And then you still would have depth at offensive tackle question moving into the offseason if you just outright cut Braden.
Right. That's always part of the calculation, right? Like what are the consequences of doing something here? I agree. I mean, that's what, if you're Braden Smith and his representation, if you are approached about something, that's the first thing you're going to say is, oh, really?
Right.
So I get it. And I don't disagree with anything you just said. All I'm saying is, and I know we're not, I think we're in agreement. All I'm saying is that, it's, they have to have a talk.
Sure,
I agree.
Sure.
They have to at least recognize this is an issue. It is an issue. And him not being out there has been a problem. I think so.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's only played in 8 games this season. Stephen Holder with us from ESPN on the Payless Liquors Hotline. It's a Wednesday on the Wake Up Call on the Fan. Listen, I got to ask you about Michael Pittman. We thought he was going to play, then he ends up not playing. What did you make of the situation between, Friday and Saturday? Still traveled with the team, wore the sunglasses, was there on the sideline, obviously, on Sunday. And then it's not even a question, Stephen. Like, I can't ask you, do you think he's going to play Sunday, because we're talking about a brain injury here. We have no idea, but boy, without him, we saw DJ Montgomery and Alec Pierce, 4 catches total, 48 yards. They could not throw the ball on Sunday. If he doesn't play, boy, that defense, a couple defensive backs for the Raiders are having some really nice seasons.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, this Raiders game, okay, everybody better sit up and pay attention all of a sudden here, okay? We'll get to that. But I would say very disappointing performance in the passing game. What I would say about Pittman and his situation is I think it was exactly what we were told. I don't always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Here, I think they really did. I think they really did tell us what happened. I mean, are there other details? I don't know, but you don't put that guy on that plane unless you had the full intent of him playing. And we asked Shane Steichen after the game, were you moving forward with Michael Pittman in the game plan and playing in this game, even though he was questionable? You remember that? And he was pretty clear. Yeah, he was up. He was going to play. So this happens sometimes. I mean, I'm working on a concussion-related story right now, and the one thing that always gets reinforced when you interview people about concussions, like experts, is that there is still a lot we don't know, or a lot that we still don't understand, at least. And when you have a relapse like that, it's not out of the question. And these things can happen. There isn't any way to predict whether something like that's going to happen. It's a very complicated thing. So anyway, yeah, this is where they are, and we'll see what happens. I mean, he's going to have to go through the protocol again. That's the thing to remember here. And that's going to be a process. So, today is a big day, and then tomorrow, hopefully a little progress and so forth.
Yeah, just a walkthrough today for the Colts. Last week on Thursday, we did see Pittman not in a red jersey, so just some kind of benchmarks to keep an eye on as the week unfolds. Again, Stephen Holder is with us here from ESPN. Stephen, I want to make sure I give credit. Zach Boyd is the one that texted me this, and I found it very interesting. I brought it up to Andy last segment, and I'll throw it at you. I don't have a great answer. I don't even know if I have some grand takeaway from it. If you look at the Colts schedule this year, they pretty much have beaten the defensive-minded head coaches and lost to the offensive-minded head coaches. That's pretty much how the season's unfolded. Sure, you have a Dennis Allen who beat them earlier this year. I guess they did beat Frank Reich. But, for the most part, they've beaten the defensive guys, lost the offensive guys. Anything you make of that?
I had not even considered it.
And I guess good news is this. 2 defensive coaches to end the year, if you want to get technical, Colts fans, Antonio Pierce and DeMeco Ryans.
Right. That is interesting. I would say this, and I'm saying this without giving it any sort of deep thought or anything. Personally, I look more at quarterbacks than the coaches.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
So when you look at Dennis Allen, for example, now Derek Carr has had maybe not his most memorable season, but that day he played like old Derek Carr, and so I think that's one where I say, all right, well that's a quarterback having a big day, and the Colts, not responding well. I don't know. It's not a terrible analogy. I guess he even lost to Stefanski, now that I think about it, without his quarterback. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It is kind of interesting. I would have to give that some thought, but I think sometimes there is something to that with offensive versus defensive head coaches. I think that sometimes is a lot of times, at least, those are teams that have sort of the, quarterback coach pairing. I don't know if those are the ones that they lost to necessarily, but just in general, those offensive head coaches oftentimes are like that. You think Andy Reid and Mahomes and so forth, those pairings. That's the other thing that I think about. When I think about offensive head coaches, who's this quarterback? Because if he has a good quarterback and he's a good offensive coach, McVay, Stafford, those kinds of things, well, those are tough outings sometimes. So anyway, but it's an interesting takeaway, though, or an interesting observation, I guess.
Yeah, we can move on, but just to lay it out for people kind of curious about it, the 8 wins, you beat 6 defensive guys, Vrabel twice, Belichick, Tomlin, Todd Bowles, D'Amico Ryans. You did beat John Harbaugh, Frank Reich. Those guys probably more special teams, offense, and Reich. And then the losses, you lost to Doug Peterson twice, Sean McVay, Kevin Stefanski, Zach Taylor, Arthur Smith, Dennis Allen being the outlier there. So I don't know.
Could be this. Could be the one other thought, and again, not having done like a dissertation on this, scoring. I mean, the Colts. Although the Colts have scored a decent amount of points this year, it's been very inconsistent, and so they haven't been a team that necessarily is going to outscore you every game. Some of those teams are teams that can put up some points, so I don't know. Maybe that's a factor too. Interesting, though.
Stephen Holder with us from ESPN on the Payless Liquors hotline. All right, Stephen, so the game coming up on Sunday against the Raiders, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you need to, to wake up, sit up, and pay attention to what this Raiders team is doing. Listen, watching them the last few weeks, watching how they just caved in that offensive line of the Chiefs, there's no doubt about it. What do you make of the Raiders, and why should we be paying attention?
Well, it really does start up front. There's no doubt about that. I mean, their defense is making plays. We've seen it 2 weeks in a row, and they are aggressive. They get after you. I mean, Max Crosby is something else. First of all, like. This guy, I don't know if anyone's been watching Hard Knocks. I've only watched a couple episodes of the in-season one, but I did see the episode where Miami played the Raiders, and all they talked about that week was Max Crosby.
He's a freak.
He really is. And Tua was particularly talking about how, and the coaches were talking about how this guy, he's going to hit you. Every time he gets close to you, he's going to hit you. Even if it's just like just a bump you in the shoulder, like he makes contact with you all the time. And his goal is to get in your head and to be like, hey, I'm here and I'm coming and you better get rid of the ball because I'm always there. And I've watched him with that in mind since then. And I'm like, oh my God, it's real. He really does it. And I think there's a psychological factor there. Like, and then a guy like Gardner Minshew, he has to play under control despite that because, sometimes he doesn't react the best, when he gets consistent pressure. So anyway, not to make it about one guy, but he's a pretty important guy for what they do. So even when he doesn't get numbers, Max Crosby, he's a presence, and Gardner Minshew is going to have to be prepared for that. And that offensive line, they're just going to have to – they got to buckle their chin straps and show me, don't tell me. Because it's about consistency. That Pittsburgh game, it doesn't mean a damn thing at this point. You got to go out there and you got to do it again.
Crosby, 13.5 sacks, 24 quarterback hits,
beast.
19 tackles for loss. And again, he's opposite the right tackle a lot. And Braden Smith injury watch continues here this week. All right, Steven, appreciate the time. And lastly, before we go, I have traveled on Christmas Day a few times. And honestly, the airport, when I travel on Christmas Day, I feel like is not as deserted as I would have thought. What is traveling on Christmas Eve like? Because you were, late flight out of Hartsfield into Indy, is that correct?
That Atlanta airport, Stephen, no one's in that Atlanta airport around the holidays, I'm sure. It's barren.
Well, I would say this. I'm sure it was busy on Sunday at some point, but by the time I got there, and I had a 10 o'clock flight, 10 o'clock p.m., I was the only person in the TSA pre-check line. Literally the only person. I said, this is the Twilight Zone.
Was the flight empty?
No, the flight was absolutely packed.
Really?
So, yeah, that's the last flight of the night, that kind of thing. So there were a fair amount of people catching those late flights. But it was funny, like I was in the Delta Sky Lounge. I'm not like big money or anything, but I got the credit card, so I got the lounge, right? So I'm in there and I'm like, all right, well, this is not terrible. I can, have a few drinks before my flight. And they make the announcement, hey, it's Christmas Eve. We're going home. Get out. So it was definitely not a very Christmas-like experience, but it's all good. I got home and, no worries.
Gosh, I thought you were going to say open bar for everybody here. Yeah. Come on back.
Everyone come on in and get something to drink.
Top shelf if you would like here.
I had at least 2 more in me, man. And I was like, hey,
right.
Damn.
Amen to that. Steven, thanks for the time here on this Wednesday morning, and we'll see you later today at the complex.
All right, guys. I'll see you soon.
That's Stephen Holder right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Something I am curious about for this week, the missed tackles. I saw a stat yesterday, Andy. The Colts missed over 20 tackles.
It's unbelievable.
Against the Atlanta Falcons. And, I feel like there's this misconception on what NFL practices are really like. I think if people have been to them, they would say maybe they lack the amount of physicality, like to the ground, that even maybe some high school practices might have, but especially this time of year. Again, the Colts aren't practicing today.
It's a walkthrough.
They maybe had 1 or 2 Wednesday practices in the last couple of months. So, how do you do that? Like, how do you kind of go about trying to drilling tackling? Because for me, Sunday was one of the worst tackling days I've ever seen from a Colts team. And Gus Bradley said it yesterday. It's not like you had one culprit. You didn't have the tiny DB who's afraid to tackle, and he whiffed 3 times, and it led to a bunch of big plays.
Zaire Franklin,
every
EJ
level
Speed
of that defense. So how do you drill that? How do you make sure that doesn't become a problem? Part of me thinks it won't be, just because it was such an anomaly. That was such a – but, it's obviously a big thing to watch because, Devontae Adams, they get Josh Jacobs back. I mean, they have some individual stars. And we talked about Max Crosby. The Raiders have got some individuals. They obviously have some issues, quarterback-wise, O-line-wise, with some injuries, but still, tackling will be something to watch on Sunday.
How much has Max flown? Is he good at flying?
This will be probably Max second time, I think.
Second time, so he's good to go. Then he's a vet. You just fly.
So
fly
last
right through.
Christmas he flew, and what was he then? 4 months, and now he's 16 months, 15 months. So I mean, Mark can probably speak to this. I mean, I think this age is the worst age to fly.
Yeah,
Max Bowen at 15 or 16 months, because he always wants to move.
No, because
he doesn't want to sit still.
Yeah, he
knows
knows
you're putting
what's
your
going
leg
on.
up. You're like, no,
right?
We're staying here.
Always wants now. When I see what Max Crosby has done in the NFL, I'm thinking I need to get the birth certificate. Are you allowed to edit the birth certificate?
Yeah, sure. You throw on another X on
Can
the
I get
end.
another X?
Dude,
I don't want to go 3 X's here, because then we can get
no,
a little,
get
a little dicey here for Max Bowen, and maybe
you can maybe do that.
What his future profession could look like. But how about just 2? Max Crosby, for those unfamiliar,
he's a beast.
MAXX.
He's the guy that would have 2 X's to his name. Like he is a crazy
He looks
man.
like Max with 2 X's.
He absolutely
Max
does.
Bowen so far does not look like Max with 2
In
X's.
fact, Max Crosby ruins it for everybody else that wants to have 2 X's. Go
people
ahead,
think,
Mark,
well, he's either a big fan of Max Crosby or TJ Maxx.
Sure. That's a great point. Right.
Department stores or Raiders linemen.
I know. Well,
he smokes those cigars after the game, too.
I think Mom would prefer Max Bowen to be maybe more of a TJ Maxx employee at some point than an NFL player.
You got to get that discount.
Yeah, certainly, especially around Christmas time. So Max Crosby, one of the best, and he's got the look of a guy that. Well, I'm trying to picture Max Crosby's college. For some reason, a Max school's popping into my head.
Oh goodness, you're usually pretty good at this. Let me look it up.
It wasn't a very high pick, right?
Oh no,
Like
4th rounder.
4th rounder.
Yeah, he's a 4th rounder. Okay, I'm looking at where he went.
Eastern Michigan.
Right. Eastern Michigan.
Doesn't
Max school.
Doesn't he look like an Eastern Michiganer?
Boy, he does. He's from Texas, though. All the Texas schools passed on him, obviously.
Isn't that Watt?
He's a late bloomer, maybe.
Isn't Watt the same type of story?
A late bloomer?
Well, directional Michigan school, right?
Yeah, he went
Central or Western for the Watts.
Oh boy, I can't. Well, okay, so TJ Watt. Now TJ Watt went to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah.
No, JJ. Sorry,
JJ Watt.
JJ.
Yeah, JJ Watt went to one of the Michigans.
Yeah, Central or Western. One of those.
One of Central Michigan and Wisconsin. So there you go. He transferred before it was cool to transfer. He started though at Central Michigan.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So
but
Max Crosby,
he's a beast. He smokes those cigars after the game. Sometimes he's smoking things that aren't cigars after the game.
Oh,
Have you seen those
really?
videos? Oh, yeah, there's videos of the Raiders,
smoking the ganja?
of smoking the ganja, after games. Like, I don't think that doesn't look like a cigarette, and it's definitely not a stogie.
In this state, I don't know if he can pull that off on Sunday, but granted.
Not in Jim Irsay's building.
At times, I think the owner of the Raiders is smoking something with that haircut.
Hey, listen, I know he's not like Jerry Jones rich, but I can't say that I wouldn't be him. living in Vegas and having a terrible haircut and having a bunch of money.
If you had Mark Davis's money, but you had to live with that haircut the rest of your life, would you do it?
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'd do way worse things than just a dopey haircut. You kidding me? That's the easiest question ever.
It's so funny. Whenever we were watching Raiders games, and to be fair, that's not very often in the Bowen household, Maddie always has an audible gasp when they show Mark Davis on TV.
It's gross.
Like, that can't be him, right?
Yeah, but I don't see. I view it almost. She's right, but I view it the other way that he's had so much. He has so much money that he's just like F it. And plus, he's the Raiders owner, and the Raiders owner can't be.
Put a bowl on my head. Max Crosby can smoke it afterwards, and you can put it right on my head.
I don't know why he does what he does, but I mean, there must be some brain behind the madness. I don't know. And plus, like I said, he's the Raiders owner.
Or just a good last name.
Yeah, I mean, he's the Raiders owner, so he can't be a bund up guy who's wearing a suit. He's got to have a tracksuit, a gold chain, and a dopey haircut. I'm nervous about this game.
You are. This is a very much a 180 from where you were at.
I know. That defensive front.
Do you worry at all about
wrecked
an emotional hangover? To me, the Chiefs game was their Super Bowl.
There's two things. The emotional hangover is absolutely part of the discussion.
Multiple time zones, short week.
Yeah, and Aiden O'Connell isn't good right now. I mean, you would lose to a quarterback that might throw for 175
there goes
yards
our Purdue
in a game.
listenership.
Mm-hmm. Todd Meyer.
Boiler
breaking
Bill.
lamps
Well,
right
I mean,
now.
right now he's not.
360 yards for Aiden O'Connell in the Big Ten title game last year against Michigan in the stadium.
He balled out. Yes, he did.
No, Aiden O'Connell has been he's been rookie.
He didn't complete a pass in the second half.
8 touchdowns, 7 picks. Now, again, the 8 touchdown number, 4 of them in one game. He started, 8 or 9 games?
Yeah, they scored 60 points against the Chargers a couple weeks ago.
And
that's where they
obviously
came, right?
a big outlier.
Yeah. I mean, Devontae is a beast. Jacoby Myers, and they've, not having, help me with the
Michael
running
Mayer.
back.
Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, not having him. They've rotated other guys in and have had success. Antonio Pierce. I mean, I don't know. He wins a game like this. People say, well, he's won now 3 in a row. He's beat the Chiefs on the road. He's beat the Colts and ruined their season on the road. He should become our head coach. That's what they're dealing with. I mean, you could see them lay an egg. Listen, 3 games ago, they scored 0 points against the Minnesota Vikings. And they don't have a great quarterback play, but they have some weapons. They've ran the ball, and that defensive front, they've had, I'm blanking, it was one of their defensive backs has had, back-to-back games. Has
Jack
had a pick
Jones.
Jack Jones, yeah. He's had a pick 6 in back-to-back games. So they have some dudes.
Right. I do think there were some pretty fluky moments in that Chiefs game. Like Pacheco and Mahomes'
the Chiefs dropped the ball at the 10-yard line.
The inability to handle the snap, wildcat, however you want to describe it. But I do think up front they did a nice job. They are banged up on their O-line, though, so that'll be something to keep an eye on going into Sunday.
Can we do a consensus, by the way, station-wise, that we all can't take the same team going forward on these picks?
Hey, I was the only one that took the Steelers.
I
know.
Hell, we made fun of you.
Yeah.
So
Now,
everyone took the Colts over Atlanta, right?
I think you just tail Max Bowen. That's 7 straight games for him on the helmet crawl.
Now you're taking the helmets with you. Have you packed
how's
the
that
helmets?
going?
You got to remember to pack the helmets. You're going to be out of town.
Boy, now
Maybe do it on the flight. Do it in the aisle.
Packing
after
the
the drink
helmets
cart
might
goes
be
by.
more important than packing the toothbrush.
Stand back, folks.
Oh,
My
yeah.
kid's got to make a pick.
To hell with the
Turbulence.
toothbrush.
Watch this kid pick a helmet here.
You can buy a toothbrush anywhere.
Yeah, you can't buy many helmets anywhere.
Yeah, you can't buy a mini helmet of the Las Vegas Raiders just anywhere in Florida. Come on.
Early line, Colts favored by 3 for this one. Again, the Raiders still in play to win the AFC West.
7-8.
They win their final 2, and the Chiefs lose their final 2. All right, morning check down time. Let's lead off with a rare recent Pacers victory.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, Pacers winners last night, 123-117. Indy moves to 15-14 on the season. One of the main storylines, the changing of the starting lineup. Of course, you saw Nembhard in there with Bruce Brown out. You saw Aaron Nesmith. Smith played there. Jalen Smith getting 23 minutes and the start as well. Post-game, Tyrese Halliburton on the new lineup.
Just had to figure it out. We played a lot of different lineups this year. We experimented with a lot of different lineups in practice and stuff like that. So thought we did a good job of being prepared and thought everybody did a good job of being ready for their role and filling in where needed.
As for Halliburton, a couple games where I felt like he's kind of been back to his normal self, 33 points in 38 minutes, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, and yet again was the closer for the Pacers
big
last
plays
night.
late. They were down 117-115. Halliburton, a great pass to Miles Turner, who got fouled, 2 free throws to tie it up. Minutes ago, Halliburton 3 right in front of Ime Udoka. That gave the Pacers the lead for good there. It was a shaky fourth quarter. Carlisle went to Halliburton early in the fourth as things started to slip away. But yeah, that lineup change. All 9 guys that played had at least 7 points for the Pacers last night. TJ McConnell bumped out of the rotation with that. Did not see Jarris Walker in the rotation. I know that was some chatter we had with Rick Carlisle yesterday, but the Pacers get a much-needed win. How about the Rockets were 12-2 at home this year?
Yeah,
I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I was surprised when I saw that number. I was stunned, actually.
It was a nice win for Indiana. Chicago tomorrow night. Zach LaVine has been out pretty much all of December with an injury. The Bulls did win against Atlanta last night. That was without Nikola Vucevic as well. Andre Drummond turned back the clock in that one, 20-20. And we know that Drummond has had some big games against Miles Turner in the past.
Just quickly, are you surprised? Like, I don't know, like Houston, I look at the roster on paper and I'm like, yeah, it's not that bad. But I don't know. Watching them last night, I haven't seen too much of them. I was just not blown away, I guess. I mean, Jabari Smith, 10 points. He didn't really stand out. Jalen Green didn't play very much.
Jalen Green has not had that ascent that I think people thought
he had 5 points
he
last
would.
night.
Yeah, I mean, Tari Eason's a guy that I know a lot of people liked in the draft for the Pacers. He has been pretty good for them. It's still a little bit of like Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, and then all these young dudes.
Right.
Sengun, I mean, he's a nice big guy for them, though.
He is, Butler kept saying, he just works.
It's a
He
little
just
unorthodox at times, but it goes in.
Yeah, and he missed a big dunk at the end, but he's like a hustle player.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And honestly, he's a little like,
he's a throwback.
I understand what you're saying, but he's better than that. Like, there is some nice skill to him.
Oh, sure. He
while
can
also
average,
just
I mean, he's averaging 20 and 10.
kind of scrapping and doing some other things. All right, Colts again. Walk through today as we just chatted with Stephen Holder. Michael Pittman Jr. is back in concussion protocol. He's got to clear all 5 steps to get ready to play on Sunday. And the biggest news item from yesterday, Julian Blackmon on injured reserve. That will mean a whole lot of Nick Cross alongside Rodney Thomas II here moving forward. Again, to fill that roster spot, the Colts brought back Henry Black, pretty much been a special teamer in his career. No starts to him. Has played some defense. He was with the team for the first couple of months of the year on the practice squad, most recently with the Steelers. So Colts getting back to work today as they get ready for Week 17 with the Raiders.
Yeah, 4 college football games starting at 2 o'clock. Virginia Tech and Tulane. You have the Military Bowl presented by Gold Bowling.
What
you
are we
like that
betting
one?
on? That's the most important thing. 4
4
bowl games. Give us a
Boy.
lock, Andy Sweeney.
Oh, man.
Nothing says lock like bowl game transfer portal drama.
I'll go with Oklahoma State over A&M. Oklahoma State's favored by a
I
field
don't wanna
goal. How does
stay
that
up
sound?
that late. Give me
No,
something
that's
earlier than
that's
that.
a 9 o'clock game. I will not bet on West Virginia because I don't think Neil Brown's that good of a head coach. So
what do
I
you mean?
can't-
It's the Mayo Bowl.
I
What
just can't do
state's
it.
better absorbing Mayo? West Virginia or North Carolina?
Give me North Carolina plus the number. How does that sound?
Come on, Andy. Louisville, USC. Let's go.
No, not touching
Now,
it.
what am I
USC.
missing here? We have 6
USC.
and 6 Virginia Tech, 11-2 Tulane, and 11-2 Green Wave are getting 10.5 points. Don't we have to take them?
Yeah, but I mean, Virginia Tech plays in the daunted ACC. I mean,
Virginia
Tulane
Tech stinks.
Let me see who Virginia Tech even beat this season.
I guess did the Tulane quarterback Pratt, is he not playing? That's got to be
probably
a big,
not. Now here's who Virginia Tech beat. Listen to this. They beat Old Dominion, Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boston College, and Virginia.
Heavy hitters.
They literally only beat the crap on their schedule. Remember, they lost to Purdue in week 2.
I'm taking the Green Wave.
There
10
you
and a
go.
half. That's what
You're
I'm going.
getting a ton of points
on that.
There's the lock of the week.
All right, on the other side, again, how big of a loss is Julian Blackmon? He was always a fan favorite of Phillip Rivers. I'll explain more, and we'll take a look back at last night with the Pacers. Rick Carlisle hinted at some lineup changes with us. That certainly came to fruition. We'll touch on that as well. Alex Golden going to join us here in about 9 o'clock, talk some Pacers as well. Good Wednesday morning to you. Thanks for spending with us. Wake up call, KB and Andy.
Prescriptions require an online consultation.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And continue to give you happy holidays here. Wake Up Call, hanging on the DriveHubler.com studios. We always appreciate Stephen Holder joining us. You miss any of that, you miss any of our nonsense over the 3 hours, check out the podcast center, 1075thefan.com. Coming up in about 10 minutes, I got to get something off my chest as it pertains to Lamar Jackson. We'll do that. Alex Golden will join us coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Before the break, KB, you teased Phillip Rivers. Okay, we didn't tease Phillip Rivers. That's an odd phrasing way for me to say it.
Not very nice of you either.
You teased something that Phillip Rivers said and or thought his time here with the Colts as it pertains to Julian Blackmon. Go ahead.
Yeah, so kind of go over the timeline. Remember, Rivers was here during that COVID year. That was Julian Blackmon's rookie season. Blackmon was coming off a torn ACL in the Pac-12 title game, so really didn't practice at all during the offseason program, even training camp. And yet, all of a sudden, they get into the season, and I think it was like week 2 or 3, he gets inserted in the starting lineup and never exits. It was very impressive, the fact that he even played less than 12 months removed from the ACL, but played as effectively as he did. And when Gus Bradley then took the job the next year, so that was still Matt Eberflus. Gus Bradley takes the job the next year. He calls up Phillip Rivers. Obviously, those two overlapped with their time with the Chargers and said, hey, obviously trust Phillip a ton from a football mind standpoint. Hey, what did you think of the Colts defense? Let me know if anybody stood out to you from a personnel standpoint. And I was always struck by this, that the first player Phillip Rivers mentioned to Gus Bradley was not DeForest Buckner, was not Shaq Leonard, was not Kenny Moore. It was Julian Blackmon. And we're talking about a COVID season in which, again, Blackmon was not on the field a whole lot during those off-season moments where you are doing a little bit more ones versus ones and those sorts of things.
He had his injury just at the absolute worst time where you just feel bad for the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right at the end of the season, all the evaluation period. With that being said, he was still a third-round pick, but you still feel bad for him.
Right, and again, a lot of people thought, could it just be a redshirt year?
Sure, be a redshirt year, yeah.
For that rookie season. And I think the cerebral nature to Blackmon is probably what stood out to Rivers the most. We've had Blackmon on, haven't we, here at some point this season?
I want to say we had him on early on in the season. Yeah, very early on in the season. I mean, if you listen to him, you will be struck very quickly about, it was a good interview, right.
I see why this is quarterback in the secondary. For those that went out to Grand Park at all here during training camp, again, Blackmon had a hamstring injury, did not participate a whole lot in training camp. But if you watched, I mean, you talk about a vocal dude from the sideline trying to get that young secondary on the same page. That was him throughout camp. Gus Bradley mentioned on Sunday the Colts had their most checks in of the season, so their most kind of pre-snap changes in of the season, and felt like when Julian exited, I think it was after about a dozen snaps, they kind of struggled in that area of making sure they got to their checks, they made the right reads, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a big loss. I mean, sure, you're going to name guys like Taylor and Pittman and Nelson and Buckner and Braden Smith and Kenny Moore. But again, I would put him in the top probably 8 or 9 guys that are most important to this team. I think the one reason for optimism, though, moving forward, I guess 2. 1, you are going to get an extended look at Nick Cross. So at the very least, it'll be nice to get a little bit more of an evaluation period with him. And then 2, I don't know if the Raiders or the Texans, and maybe C.J. Stroud will say, watch this, but can they really, really test you? Stroud is still a rookie quarterback, so, how does he handle that?
Well, the Texans' injuries, their offense hasn't been the same the last 3 weeks.
Tank Dell's hurt. Their O-line injuries starting to pile up. Wideout-wise, outside of Tank Dell, they've been banged up as well. And then, of course, the Raiders didn't even complete a pass in the final 3 quarters. But I just think it's something to monitor. Do teams try and tap into that? Are the Colts on the same page? Because, boy, in my opinion, that was the worst defensive effort of the season, and it came with Julian Blackmon exiting, relatively early in that game.
I know this is nitpicking, and everyone's going to have their own rankings and everything else. I would agree with you. I mean, you put the number now. I think we went from 10 to 8. If you came up with the most important Colts right now on this team, Blackmon would easily be on that list. I kind of think he's in on that list ahead of Jonathan Taylor. perhaps, just because.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can listen to that argument.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor hasn't had a 100-yard game. Jonathan Taylor hasn't been available, whether it be the beginning of the season, the injuries during the season. It took him a couple games to get ramped up. Julian Blackmon's been here the entire time. I mean, we've almost taken him for granted. I know we had him on earlier in the year. Like I said, I mean, this guy, 88 sacks, 4 interceptions. It's a big-time player. If you told me, hey, for this season, he matters more than Jonathan Taylor, I think that's absolutely true. That's where I would go, at least.
And again, I think there's a lot of quiet plays that go unnoticed that he just kind of steadies that force. If you watch, him and Zaire Franklin are really kind of the key communicators of that defense. You know, Blackmon plays a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, so that news yesterday, certainly one that is going to sting here for the next couple of weeks.
Let me give you some sound yesterday from Gus Bradley. He talked about this. Now, is this before the Blackmon news came out? They always speak before there's an injury, right?
Yes.
Every single
now,
time.
I think when Gus Bradley speaks here, he knows that Julian Blackmon's going to be out or going to go on injured reserve. But technically, yeah, this was a couple hours before he was put on injured reserve.
Let me switch it up. We'll get to Gus Bradley here in a second. Here's Shane Steichen. This is from the Colts Roundtable. You know this is not a long clip, but here's Shane Steichen actually talking about putting Blackmon on IR.
It's tough to lose a player like Julian. Like you said, he's been playing at a high level, getting takeaways for us. So, next guy's got to step up, feel bad for him. But I know he'll come back stronger from it.
And then here's Gus Bradley on Nick Cross talking about Blackmon, but Cross coming in obviously midway through.
He went in there and we saw him. He made some tackles. I think the communication with Julian, it took us a little bit. There's a little different communication mode with Julian in there than Nick. And but I think as the game got on, the communication became better.
So there's Gus Bradley and Shane Steichen. That's what we have on the Blackmon injury, as he's going to be out for the next 4 weeks, probably this season.
If you look now at the Colts secondary, it would be obviously Kenny Moore, but then in that nickel package, the other 4 guys in the secondary, 2 rookies, Juju Brents, Jalen Jones as your outside corners, and 2 second-year safeties in Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas the second. All right, Alex Golden in about 15 to talk Pacers, the lineup changes, anything he would like to see as we are approaching the trade deadline. It's just over a month away here for the NBA. On the other side, though, Lamar Jackson chatter. Is this MVP Lamar Jackson chatter?
It is, but I have a history with Lamar.
Oh.
That's number one. A good history with Lamar.
Right. I was nervous for a second.
For the most part.
Better than Will Levis history?
Yes, well, given that Lamar didn't do something like put mayo in his damn coffee, so he's good with me. It's not even about Lamar. It's about the conversation, and Lamar reminds me of somebody. We'll get to that next.
Bowl season is upon us.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I appreciate you joining us. Alex Golding going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. We'll talk some NBA with him. Pacers winners. We've talked a lot about that, a bunch of Colts stuff as well. But we'll dive back into the Pacers winners last night in Houston. Houston was 12-2 at home. KB gave us that stat. Did not know that until getting ready for this game. We can carve a couple minutes for some Lamar Jackson talk here. Is that okay with you, KB?
Heavy MVP favorite? Is that what it is right now?
I think he's probably going to win the MVP. I guess I would be surprised at this
What
point
about
if he
McCaffrey?
did not.
No?
Oh, no, I'm with you. I would go not with Lamar Jackson probably. I would probably go with McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill. There's other guys, if you look number-wise, that have better numbers than Lamar. But Lamar, he did it against San Francisco. They're the best team right now in the NFL, leading the AFC and everything else. And my problem with Lamar is not even Lamar. In fact, Kevin Bowen, I don't want to even discuss Lamar in what he's good at and what he's bad at. Is that fair? I am, in radio, whether it be here or it be in music, you got to play the hits. If you're a radio DJ on the country station, you may not like the hit, but you got to play the Morgan Wallen hit. I don't know why I'm picking on Morgan Wallen. I know he's very popular right now. And here, obviously, it's Colts, it's Pacers, it's IU, Purdue, and
Notre Dame
everything
basketball.
else. Notre Dame basketball,
Right.
Notre Dame football, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Cincinnati Reds, all those different things. And the reason I bring it up is, yesterday and the last couple days has started yet again the Lamar Jackson conversation, and I have dealt with this because I followed him at U of L. When he was at Louisville, Booger McFarland called Lamar Jackson and that team Lamar Jackson and a bunch of dudes. And that's very much what it was. And so when Lamar did well, everybody loved him. And then when he didn't do well and he fumbled the game away against Kentucky and Louisville didn't win 10 games and they didn't go to an Orange Bowl, it wasn't Lamar's fault. And then that carried over to the NFL that Lamar was great, but, he didn't have the wide receivers. And then Lamar was a quote-unquote, free agent, restricted free agent this offseason, and nobody wanted him. In fact, teams like the Carolina Panthers and like the Atlanta Falcons and like the Miami Dolphins, KB, they all came out very publicly and said, we like our guy. And, that is carried into the season as now everyone who loves Lamar is doing the gotcha, and everyone that, maybe doesn't love Lamar, they're saying, well, we never could have, paid him all the guaranteed money, and we would never give up 2 picks and yada, yada, and that's been the discussion. And I follow this. You guys probably don't. I'm going to be clear. But I have followed now all the way back to college, and now his, however many years he's been in the NFL here, the Lamar Jackson discussion. When he has a big game, we react. When he has a bad game, we react. And they're big swinging reactions. And I had a buddy tell me this, and he's spot on. Lamar Jackson is basically like the Donald Trump of sports. It doesn't matter if you like him or you
didn't
don't
have this
like
on
him.
the bingo card today.
Yesterday and the last couple days has been full of Lamar Jackson talk again. And he's the only player we do this to where we play the gotcha card all the time on Lamar. If he has a bad game, it's gotcha. He's not a good thrower. He's not a good thrower. He's never been a great thrower. He's a running quarterback. He's going to be injured. And then when he's great, people have lined up to tell us how stupid. And by the way, Brian Noe talked about this, filling in for JMV yesterday. Well, that every team, including the Colts, they're stupid. They didn't offer 2 first-rounders and be ready to pay, 185 plus in guaranteed money. And we forget. We forget this was on the heels of Deshaun Watson. We forget the injuries the last couple years, but I don't even care about all that with Lamar Jackson. He is a Donald Trump of sports that whether you like him or you dislike him, he is absolutely the conversation piece. And I can't even imagine what the conversation piece is going to be when he wins the second MVP. And he's going to win a second MVP, and he's not going to have the best numbers. He's not going to throw.
Right.
He's not going to throw
for why.
Yeah, he's not going to throw for the most touchdowns. He's not going to throw for 5,500 yards.
Yeah, I think I look at Lamar individually this year, and I think we've we're falling into the NFL MVP trap as best quarterback on the college football best team. Like, that's kind of what the Heisman Trophy trended towards. And if you look at Lamar individually, he's not had a great MVP season in my mind. Now, again, the Ravens, they've had a lead at the 2-minute warning of every game this season. Like, it's extremely impressive what they've done.
They're a great roster. They're well coached.
They've been banged up, and they've overcome that. Like, 100%. It is remarkable. And I think Lamar is a very good player. Obviously, he's a tremendous player. He's one of the best players in the league, bar none. I look at McCaffrey a little bit more and think individually you just don't see guys do what he is doing this season. So that's where I would go with that. I remember the Lamar Colts chatter back. You know, we had this debate.
Oh, sure
Andy,
you did.
I mean,
sure.
heavily during the offseason. For me, where my hesitancy went in making the trade for Lamar was simply health. And he right now is going to exit the month of December healthy for the first time in 3 years. You know, when you think back to each of the past 2 seasons, it's been the early December lower body injury. And that's been the big thing for me. It's like sustaining that level. I mean, he is the most gifted athlete on pretty much every NFL field he walks on, bar none. And he's been that probably since 2018. But it's the, what is he, 25, 26 years old? I forget exactly how old he is. It's what does that look like in 28, 29 years?
Right.
Again, can he sustain that? Can the longevity still be at that dual threat, rare athlete nature that he brings to the quarterback position? That was the question that I had.
But KB, it's just for me.
Is he that polarized? Is he really that polarizing? You think?
I mean, this entire conversation of collusion in the NFL, race becomes an absolute factor with Lamar Jackson. If he fails, it's blown out of proportion. If he succeeds, it's blown out of proportion. The only team I would say, and sorry to Mark Dykton on this because this is what he's relying on as a Bears fan, is the Carolina Panthers. Mm-hmm. I mean, they gave up a second and 2 first-rounders to move up and get Bryce Young. So if you're telling me you would have given up everything to go do that, why not Lamar Jackson? But, of course, the money between a rookie contract with Bryce Young and a contract with Lamar Jackson, and even saying that yesterday was, well, if Josh Allen were on the market, if Patrick Mahomes were on the market,
I think hindsight
would you give up 2 first-rounders? And that's the Lamar discussion, man, and I'm right in the middle of it. I'm tired of it.
Ignoring the injury history is hard for me.
And you got it when you're on the radio. You got to play the DJ's got to play the hits. And I understand that it's the hits to talk about Lamar, but I'm tired of it. Thank you for letting me have those 3 or 4 minutes.
Alex Golden, Pacers chatted on the other side.
The Ride with JMV.
Hey, simply put.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, 9 o'clock hour, hanging out, drivehuber.com studio. Appreciate Stephen Holder joining us. Appreciate you guys letting me just get that off my chest. Lamar Jackson probably will win MVP, second MVP for him, so we'll dive into that, I'm sure, as we go. And Colts Conversation, 9 a.m., going to be our coverage on Sunday. Boy, it's a big one. Colts and Raiders. Raiders with that defense should be a lot of fun, and if the Colts win that one, we'll see exactly what the health is looking like with C.J. Stroud. He'll be coming in here to Lucas Oil coming up on, well, we don't know. We'll find out on Sunday if that's going to be a Saturday or Sunday game. Let's get back to Pacer talk. Alex Golden joins us at Alex Golden NBA. If you want to follow him on Twitter, lots of places you can find his work as well. Setting the Pace podcast, the Blue and Gold, the Golden, I should say, on Substack. Alex, good morning. How are you today, sir? How's it going?
I'm doing all right, Andy. How are you doing, man?
I don't know many young Allens.
Do we make Allens anymore?
I don't know. Do we? Alex, do you know any Allens under the age of 35?
No, I don't. And actually, my dad's middle name is Allen.
Look at this.
But that's about the only Allen I know.
Alan Henderson's the youngest Allen that we all know. Alex Golden joining us here.
I always like the shooting form of Allen
hotline.
Houston.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's a great player. Alex, what did you make? I should just call you Alan the rest of the way. Alex, what did you make the win last night? A new starting lineup, some new combinations. A guy like Obi Toppin only playing 15 minutes. What did you make of the win, and what did you make of some of the changes that we saw from the coaching staff?
Yeah, so just with what I thought of the win, I mean, this isn't a hot take or anything, but obviously this is the best win since they've beaten the Bucs in the in-season tournament. You know, Houston came in 12-2 at home. They've been playing pretty good basketball. They're a playoff team right now in the Western Conference and one of the top defenses, and the Pacers were able to kind of find a way to get things going and play pretty solid defense themselves. I mean, obviously there was moments where they struggled, but 117 points is pretty good number for the Pacers, and I think over the last 4 games they're right around 19th in defensive rating, which is a drastic improvement from where they've been at for the majority of the season. But, you know, Rick Carlisle, he was asked by Bob Kravitz after the game Saturday against the Magic if he had any consideration to changing up the lineup, and he kind of didn't really seem like he was going to do it. And so then when he came on your guys' show yesterday and hinted at it, I was like, is he really going to make a drastic change? And I honestly didn't think that he would. But to see how big of a change it was to put Jalen in there with Aaron Nesmith, I thought that's pretty telling of what he thinks of his power forward rotation to go back to a center playing power forward, especially against a guy like Jabari Smith. But I think overall what Rick Carlisle was trying to do was get guys that play hard all the time. And he talked about that after the Magic game, just trying to find guys that will play hard from start to finish and not waiting until you get down by 14 points and come out in the second half and give it your best punch. So I felt like the 3 guys that he put in the lineup next to Miles and Tyrese were guys that always give it their best and always play, you know, hard-nosed defense. So I think that's what the reasoning was for it. We'll see if it's a long-term solution or if it was just a game, change right there for this Houston matchup. But I liked it. I thought it was a breath of fresh air, and it was great to see Jalen Smith get some extra minutes and really dominate the glass, getting 8 boards, which Obi Toppin is not known for doing.
Alex, hope you had a great Christmas, and appreciate you joining us here on this Wednesday morning. Again, it's Alex Golden from Setting the Pace with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. I thought Tony East had a really interesting stat in saying that lineup, that 5-man grouping, so that would be Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Jalen Smith, Miles Turner, had only played 18 seconds together, and that was last November. So it's not like a grouping that they had really gone to at all this year, of course, or even last year. And you might have just answered this, so I apologize if you feel like you're being a bit redundant. Do you feel like it was a little bit more of a reward the 2 most consistent non-Tyrese Halliburton guys for the Pacers this season in Nesmith or Jalen Smith? Or do you think it was more of we need to get more size out there because we're fouling way too much on the defensive end?
I mean, I think it's a combination of both, KB, to be real with you. And let's be honest. I mean, if we want to have a conversation about Obi Toppin, yeah, like his numbers haven't looked bad this year. He's pretty efficient from the field. I know that he was leading the league in 2-point field goal percentage with a certain amount of attempts at one point last week. But it's like Obi Toppin is not a good rebounder and is not a good defender. And so, Miles Turner is also not the greatest rebounder. He's an okay rebounder. getting some more size out there would help. And then you gotta think about this too. Jalen Smith has been shooting the ball incredibly well from three, and that was kind of the problem last year with him and Miles playing together, was he wasn't able to shoot at a high clip from the perimeter. So only 1 of 4 last night, didn't shoot particularly well, but he's become a more respected three-point shooter by opponents. So I thought that was the key there. And then Aaron Nesmith, I mean, he's your best perimeter defender on this team, and probably gives you the best chance to guard other types of wings. You know, I think Andrew Nembhard's really, really good too at that position. So having both those guys out there that can kind of switch everything, I think helps their defense a lot. And, you know, Rick had to make a change. I think defensively this team has really struggled all year long. And while you also do sacrifice a little bit of offense, not having a Buddy out there or even maybe a Ben Mathurin, you know, Aaron's been shooting the ball well, and so is Jalen Smith. And maybe they felt like because they're shooting the ball so well, it'll still open up the offense and not, you know, clog things up with Tyrese.
Obviously, there's plenty of long-term reasons to make this move, but do you see short-term reasons to put Jarris Walker into the rotation right now?
I mean, it's tough. I think that I would like to see him play, and that to me is, you know, one of those things everybody that's a Pacer fan wants to see, just to get him some run. And I thought it was interesting what Coach Carlisle said to you guys yesterday. It's like, you know, had he played really good in that Winter Showcase Championship game against the New York G League team, maybe he would have got some run. But he acted like, well, he had 2 really good games and then one game that wasn't great. So, you know, that's all about being consistent. I'm just thinking, okay, so we're basing it off maybe G League Winter Showcase games. But I thought he played well against Minnesota. I thought he earned some minutes in the rotation, but unfortunately he was not given those minutes after that game. So I would like to see him get minutes, but with how they've kind of constructed the lineup now, and bringing Obi off the bench, I don't necessarily know where he's going to fit in with the rotation, just because I don't think Obi or Jarris are really threes. And then you've got Jalen Smith starting at the 4. So they're going a little bit bigger, but I think Jarris needs to get playing time. I just don't know how they get him into the rotation right now if everything's played out. But you brought up a great point yesterday, KB, about Obi being, you know, a guy on an expiring contract. Based on how he's played this year, I would be a little bit surprised if he's brought back in the offseason.
Oh, I don't think you're bringing Obi Toppin back. That's just, unless the price is right, I just don't think you are. There's money that can be used elsewhere. He's just not, to me, it's his rebounding numbers as much as anything. He just doesn't have the rebounding numbers. Alex Golden with us, Setting the Pace podcast, hanging out on the Payless Liquors hotline. 4 straight games that they've allowed defensively under 120 points in those games. Orlando, Houston, Memphis. And what happened there with Charlotte, I don't know. It sounds funny to ask this. That is improvement, right? And if so, why do you think they have improved defensively, even if that's just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the rotations have been better. I think they're doing a better job of communicating. There's still obviously some struggles out there, and you see guys get wide open, but I feel like there's been more of an emphasis on it, especially after that Clippers game. I mean, it was terrible watching them give up another 150-point game. And I think that practice that Carlisle alluded to, just they needed that, you know, live action practice. They hadn't had one in a couple of weeks, getting back home. I think that's helped. But also the opponents they played, they're not great offensive scoring teams either. I know Charlotte's probably a little bit better, but without LaMelo, without Mark Williams, you know, kind of to put things into perspective there. I think that they've been matched up with some teams that aren't necessarily the greatest offensive output teams, but they've done a better job of just, I think anytime Andrew Nembhard can get on the floor for 30-plus minutes, I think that's going to help your defense. I think he has been that pivotal to what this team wants to do, and I really like how he plays defense, and I feel like if you have him guarding the other team's best guards, you could say Bruce Brown can do the same thing, but I feel like Andrew Nembhard's more of a physical defender than a Bruce Brown is, a little bit more gritty, and so just getting him in there with more minutes has been huge to me, and then I just think they're playing more cohesively together, just doing a better job communicating and not allowing themselves to get beat up when they're not getting it offensively. They're still staying together defensively, which I think has been a sign of improvement from this team and really just a step in the right direction.
Again, Alex Golden's with us here. Setting the Pace is the podcast. Great listen to with Alex on the Pacers. He's joined us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Alex, who would you label as the most disappointing Pacers player this season?
Oh, man. I think a lot of people would probably point the finger at Bruce Brown. just because of what you paid him and how he's not really felt like you haven't felt his impact that much. But, I would probably have to lean Ben Matherin to a certain degree just because it's been so inconsistent. And while he has made improvements, he can't do it consistently. And just trying to find that right balance of how does he fit with this team, because you watch some games and you're like, if he can just do this, he's going to fit in fine with this team. And then you see other times where he does, plays a certain way and he's not able to, really show like, okay, he's a perfect fit next to Tyrese, that kind of thing. So I was really hoping that him and Tyrese would find that chemistry this year. He would take that second year step, and he's kind of hit a sophomore slump a little bit, not to the point where I'm worried about it all the way, but I think just going from a starter to coming off the bench and kind of being hit or miss with what his role is with this team, I think that it's just been a little bit underwhelming, but I'd probably go Ben. I don't know about you, KB, but that's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you out. I mean, the inconsistency of Matherin is there. I actually thought last night he had a few, nice kind of plays from a playmaking, passing standpoint. Guys just didn't hit open shots. But, yeah, I mean, from the inconsistency standpoint, certainly I think that's fair. And obviously, you are talking to a guy that loves Matherin, and I know that you are a big Matherin guy as well. Okay, last one from me. I know something you love to do is crunch the trade machine. We are a little over a month away from the trade deadline. If I threw the label realistic, what do you view as realistic in season for this Pacers team come trade deadline?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to make a swing. I think Tyrese Halliburton's comments after the Magic game were pretty telling. I don't know if you saw that clip or not where he talked about how Orlando has a lot of, bigger wings and, they're built to win for the future. And that's the way the league is heading now. And it wasn't like he was indirectly saying the Pacers don't have that, but they don't. And Jarris Walker is probably the only one that would consider like a true 6'8" kind of hybrid 4 type of player. But they're missing that 4, that 3. And the Raptors' names are always going to come up just because Siakam and OG are two guys that could make a lot of sense on this team. And you can make the case for who's the better fit, what it's going to cost you, that type of thing. I know that Pascal Siakam probably wants to re-sign in Toronto just because he's been a franchise player there. OG Anunoby don't really know what he's going to do with that contract, but I definitely think he's opting out. But in terms of realistic, it's one of those things where I don't know how much the Pacers will be willing to give up. But I think if they could maybe take a flyer on somebody without giving up a lot of assets, that would be kind of smart. And someone that I'm keeping my eye on, and I know Pacers fans probably quiver when they hear this name, is Gordon Hayward. And I know that doesn't scream off the page like, oh, what are we doing for a 34-year-old kind of power forward? But he's an expiring contract, so you don't have long-term money invested into him. He plays that power forward, small forward position. Very good offensive player, very smart basketball IQ kind of guy. He stayed healthy this year for Charlotte. And I think that if they could maybe make a move like that where they're not giving up a Ben or a Jarris, someone like that to get him, that could be a more of like a patch the hole type thing, because you do always have to worry about, does Pascal leave in free agency if you trade for him, and are you willing to trade a guy like Matherin or Walker for a guy that could leave? And I think that, Hayward's not going to demand that much value back in return. So that's a name that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, but I'm sure there's other names out there that could make some sense. I haven't really looked too deep into who could be traded, but that's someone I wouldn't mind if the Pacers took a flyer on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know what I had further off the bingo card today. Andy comparing Lamar Jackson to Donald Trump, or you throwing out Gordon Hayward as for the Pacers here at the trade deadline.
You did preface it, Alex. You're like, listen, Pacer fans may not like this.
No, he did a very nice job of prefacing
Gordon
it.
Hayward.
I don't know if not needs to be used, to be honest with you, Alex.
No, I mean, everybody gets mad if I bring it up, but it's a 6'8" wing. I mean, they don't have a player like that. He's really smart. I think that he's been in enough games and has enough experience that he would help this team. And my biggest thing is you don't want to jeopardize the future too much.
Right.
I don't want to give up on Jarris or Ben just yet. And while I can make the case for maybe you do trade Jarris to go get a Pascal Siakam, it might be a better fit, might give you a higher ceiling this season. What really is the ceiling this season? Is it getting to the Eastern Conference Finals? I think that's unrealistic. I think that's a pipe dream. So to me, it's like the most realistic thing is maybe getting a first-round playoff series win, and is that worth giving up on some of your own talent? I think that's a little bit something I would not want to do.
Alex, always enjoy your insight, man. Again, hope you had a great Christmas. Happy New Year to you, and appreciate the time.
Yeah, you guys too. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. And I do have to give a shout out real quick. Sorry, but it is my wife's 27th birthday on the 27th. So
Oh,
it's her golden
nice.
birthday.
How about that?
So happy birthday, babe. And she's not listening, but I'll make sure she goes back and listens to the podcast on 1075thefan.com.
Yeah,
there we
you
go.
You can't drop the happy birthday, babe, and then have her not listen to it. Certainly send her the podcast. Come on now.
How do you know she's not listening? 27-year-old women. That's our demo, Alex. How dare you? Please.
Well, I told her, I said, I'm going on tomorrow. I said, I'm going to make sure to give you a shout out because I've done that for a few anniversaries for my parents and my in-laws and my grandparents too. So she's like, well, I probably won't listen. I was like, oh, you're going to listen to it. Just one way or the other. I'm going to make sure you hear that I did my job as a husband.
Happy birthday there to the missus. Well-deserved shout out. And like I said, Alex, thanks for the time, man.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you. I'll see you later.
Alex Golden right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. You know, as we talk Pacers, we talk NBA, I still cannot get over this Detroit Pistons streak. 27 straight losses.
So how much are you rooting for misery? Because I'm fine with rooting for this team not to win another game this season.
I want it to be 270 straight losses. And I like Monty Williams. You know, Jaden Ivey strikes me as a fine dude. But, yeah, keep it going.
If we have to sacrifice Monty Williams and his love for Notre Dame to get a team to lose 40 in a row in the NBA, we got to do what we got to do, KB.
Now, again, Detroit fans are okay with this thanks to their Lions, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, and the thing in the NBA, you know, I guess they could, you know, the balls won't drop their way. They should get the number one pick. I don't know. You'll have a top pick. But, yeah, it's all Jared Goff conversation.
Should we do like a... You know how like on the people like the birth, like the time and like the weight and all that stuff, should we do like a show projection? Like we each pick a round when we think they'll win their game, and that winner gets like a 6-pack of beer from the other two.
Saturday
that's a great one.
Saturday against the Raptors is one I have circled.
It's a possibility. I mean, they have, quote, winnable games, but they've had winnable games for the last, 2 months.
Someone made this point yesterday. It's turned into the streak now where teams are locked into playing them because they don't want to be the one.
I saw this. They're getting everyone's best shot because you don't want to be the team that loses to this Pistons team. It was a great point. I saw it kicking around the internet. I don't know who to give credit to.
The other great point is, again, the Arizona Diamondbacks have more recently won a game than the Detroit Pistons.
We need to find.
That's incredible.
We need to find other teams that fit that mold because I'm sure there's some. What would if they got Gordon Hayward, what would be your? Okay, so there you go. I haven't heard your conversation.
I love Alex Golden. I love listening to him. I really appreciate him bringing up. You know, I prefaced the question by saying, he's a big trade machine guy. I mean, he looks into this. I'm not a huge trade machiner. So I am very appreciative that Alex throws ideas and says, what do you think sticks? What do you think doesn't stick? I don't get time frame wise. I don't get stylistically wise. Remember, Andy, were you and I doing the show when like the Drew Holiday chatter was brought up?
It was right at the very
beginning.
beginning.
Remember how much pushback I got for saying this is something I would entertain if I were the Pacers?
You were strong with, hey, this guy's a baller, right? We should look at getting this player.
And obviously, age-wise, it doesn't meet any sort of criteria for where the Pacers are at
34?
right now.
Was he 33 or was he 34 by that
34.
point?
But again, stylistically, that dude brings it on both ends of the floor.
He's a better player than Gordon Hayward.
That dude is a winner. He's a winner in Team USA. He's a winner in the NBA. I love everything about him.
But Gordon Hayward played a butler. What
the
are you
Gordon
doing?
Hayward
Right down the street.
The story's tremendous. I'm all for Hollywood, the feel-good story of it all. I love it. No, Max Bowen, do not touch the burner.
Let me ask you guys
Bring him home. Let him go to Graders.
Is there anyone out there that would say yes to that?
That was my question I haven't been here long enough to forecast. Is there someone in the area that would stand up on their pulpit and say yes to Gordon Hayward?
I think he married into an Indy family. I'm not sure if they would say yes to that. No.
Oh, man. They've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row. They've lost 8 of 9.
Who's this, Charlotte?
Has Charlotte. He's averaging 4. I'm not even going to try to do that. He's averaging 14 a game and trying to do that thing with you.
Yeah.
He had 11 points and 3 assists, 1 rebound against the Pacers back last Wednesday.
Just the quick YouTube chat reaction.
Oh, I know. It's 99%.
Gordon
Who is the
Hayward,
1%?
get a grip.
Who is the
Brother,
1%?
we need defense. Hayward 7 years ago, maybe, not today.
No, I mean, I agree.
And there's injury history, unfortunately, with him as well.
I think he's injured right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think his status says out on ESPN.com, so I'll blame ESPN.com. The one thing, I never could pull off the Gordon Hayward haircut with the very hard part on the side and then down, basically flesh on one side and then the swoop all the way over.
No, I don't have that.
He's almost 34 years old, still doing a young man's haircut.
I got Mark Davis's hair, better chance than I've got Gordon Hayward's hair.
I think Mark Dykton could have pulled that off back in the day. Not now.
Maybe. No, not
not now.
Not 3 kids
at
in.
some point.
For those 8 o'clock tips, so maybe those, fell asleep a little early with the Pacers last night. That was kind of a wild one. When you think back to, you get off to a great start. Everybody's hitting a 3 with the new starting lineup. You get a 3, great start. And then second quarter, not good. So, the trickle-down effect of a new starting lineup, Andy, is your rotation is different. Your bench unit is different. They've really struggled. Houston's got the lead at halftime. Halliburton comes out and has a vintage Halliburton third quarter. Great third quarter for him. Looks like an all-star. Pacers outscore the Rockets. I think it goes 13 or 14 in the third. And all of a sudden, the start of the fourth quarter, it starts to slip. Carlisle goes back to Halliburton, I think, much earlier than he would like to. And they lead. Houston has a lead with, about a minute 30 to go?
A minute 50, and that's when the Pacers called that timeout. Is 1:17, Houston. Van Fleet hit that floater. If you remember, he hit the floater, and Carlisle called the timeout.
And Carlisle went to the same. He said he talked with Mike Weiner, their assistant, went to the same play on back-to-back possessions. It got Turner to the foul line to tie the game up at 1:17, and then Halliburton hits that 3 to take the lead, 120-117. They got stops, and they hit some free throws there late to ice it. Nembhard had a floater to I think, kind of really put it away. But that was a back-and-forth game. 15 lead changes. And, again, not many teams have won in Houston this season, so much needed on many accounts for the Pacers.
Don't you feel as well? We'll get to a check down here. We'll get to our pop quiz coming up in about 12 minutes as well. I don't know. For me, I guess I view last night simply as – I thought in the final couple minutes you were going to give up the ghost and lose the game. And so for me, I'm like, you're stealing from losing that game. You steal that game and you get a win. Halliburton, the last couple games, I feel like he's starting to kind of make those plays. You give him a chance to close the game. You always love that. As for the starting lineups and just, the miss and match that they're going to do, we know there's going to be games that TJ McConnell plays. We know there's going to be a change to what they do when Bruce Brown comes back from his injury. You have mentioned Jarris Walker. At some point, you would imagine Walker gets an opportunity. If that's the case, you're going to see some minutes change. So, as for lineups and starting lineups, I am ready for that to be a conversation piece that we have the majority of the season. I'm not sure that Carlisle's ever going to just settle into, hey, this is going to be my starting 5, just because, guys play a bad stretch for a couple weeks. You try something else. And this team hasn't even dealt with, a prolonged injury, if you will, knock on wood, Bruce Brown dealing with that. And then I think the other thing, it's an improvement. How much it's an improvement? I think Carlisle is probably glass half full. 4 straight opponents under 120 points. And I know maybe for people that love 90s basketball, that's something you may smile at. But
that's a big deal.
For where this team was, you feel like if you can take – if they're not averaging 135 a game, if they're averaging 117 a game, 118 a game, there's a lot of room to play with there. To me, that's the thing I'm going to be watching is when they start playing these better teams, can they, can they keep the Bucks and Celtics to 114 points, not just simply Charlotte and the Houston Rockets?
Gordon Hayward?
Hey, that's 14 a game, man. It's 6'7" wings. Anyone who's 6'7", 6'8", 6'9".
Love the Butler runs.
I know.
I mean, hell, Gordon Hayward, he's my same age. Like, I should be all about it.
You should be all about
I've lived
Gordon
here my
Hayward.
whole life.
You really
I'm
should
all
be.
for sentimental. No.
Kevin's going to be on the plane trying to enjoy vacations. Can I have a double? I'm thinking about Gordon Hayward and the Pacers again.
Honestly.
It cost you $42.
Yeah, maybe a triple. Well, with how the kids are going to act on the flight, I think
they'll be fine.
That might be necessary. There is
They'll
literally
be fine.
There's a better chance of the Pistons winning the title this season, Andy.
Where are you
than
going?
the
Indy,
kids
Indy to Atlanta or Indy to Charlotte? Where
no,
are you going?
we are direct, thankfully.
Oh,
but
beautiful. Even better.
Still.
Even better.
No.
Prayers for all of the other customers.
I feel for Kevin. The best feeling will be when you land and you hit the gate and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. They will clap to see the Bowens walk off the flight, honestly.
Have you guys taken the stroller through TSA and everything?
Yeah.
That looks like a nightmare. I've seen parents do that, and me and my wife always
We've
said
got
how
to
miserable
gate check
that
the
looked.
stroller. We've got to gate check the car seats. So
and the Comrex.
We are and the Comrex. We are lumber. We are
Yeah.
fully assembled. I look like I'm going to Menards to build a house.
Try carrying 3 car seats through to the gate. That's always fun because you're like, oh, I don't want to have to wait for the luggage return and everything like that. I want to just get them when I get off and just get to the car.
Can't wait.
That's always fun.
Get us there. That's all I'm thinking about right now. All right, pop quiz in a few. Should we do a pair of Butler tickets with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're still giving them away.
Yeah,
Sure.
we had a winner. We had a winner yesterday. He's very happy to get those tickets. He
Stephanie?
says, "I'll be."
Is that correct? On our winner yesterday.
Boy, I cannot remember. Yes,
think
let's go
that's
with
right.
yes.
Elijah.
The rare female listener, and you guys don't remember her name?
I believe it was Colleen.
No, it was Colleen because
How did I forget that? It's my mom's name.
Because it's your mom's name. Yep, that's it.
Kevin Bowen, what an awful son I am. Yeah, shout out to Colleen. It was how many wins NCAA tournament-wise for Butler since the year 2000? 22 wins on that. So, yes, the pop quiz participant will get a pair of tickets. That is a week from Friday, Butler and UConn over at Hinkle. Before we get to the pop quiz, 317-239-1070. Let's morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, for the final time today, let's start with the Pacers 123-117 winners last night on the road in Houston. Pacers improved to 15-14 on the season. A perfect soundbite we haven't played. It leads right into it. The final 2 minutes of the game, it's a minute 50. Houston has taken a 2-point lead from then on out. The Pacers close with an 8-0 run to get that 123-117 victory. Post-game, Tyrese Halliburton on the message during that timeout.
Just calming everybody down. We were a little frantic there, taking some bad shots in transition. I didn't do a good job of slowing us down. So, coach made a good play call. Got Miles a dunk. We were on the same play again. Got me a 3 on the wing. So, they did a really good job of getting us in a good set.
Boy, Halliburton looked like his old self. 33 points, 7 of 13 from behind the arc, 10 assists, 3 turnovers, hit the big shot late. And how about the bigs in general? Turner, 18-5. Jalen Smith, 12-8. Isaiah Jackson, 11-8. You add that up, that is great front court production from the Pacers as they make a starting lineup change. Several of them with Aaron Nesmith, Jalen Smith inserted in for Buddy Hield and Obi Toppin. Again, tomorrow night in Chicago, that will be another 8 o'clock tip. Pacers trying to beat the Bulls after they lost to them earlier this season. Both teams very different from that first meeting earlier this year. All right, Colts walk through today. Injuries to watch for this Week 17 matchup with the Raiders. Certainly Michael Pittman Jr., as he is back in concussion protocol. How does he progress through that? Braden Smith, it goes without saying how important he is, especially with what Blake Freeland looked like last week and the matchup with Max Crosby coming up on Sunday. Zach Moss, remember he was a late scratch. Didn't practice all last week. Do we see him back as well? I think that pretty much covers it. Again, Julian Blackmon, we know, on injured reserve with that shoulder injury. We've talked a lot about that on today's show. And I think also, Andy, I'm curious about Jonathan Taylor. Does another week allow a little bit more confidence in the thumb? Do you involve him in the passing game at all? Do you have a little bit more open-mindedness there? I think that's something that needs to be explored with Taylor and just trying to get your playmakers the ball in space.
I mean, it's Jonathan Taylor. It's maddening following the Michael Pittman story because we're not going to know until we get to Sunday, right? I mean, I guess Saturday we would know, but, I mean, we're just not going to know. We're going to go off the air on Friday, and we're going to pick the games, and you're going to be in beautiful, sunny Florida, shirtless, enjoying the 80-degree weather while we're at 40 degrees, running our Bride heating systems.
I almost went shirtless on Christmas, by the way.
And I'm telling, and you're going to be living the good life, and we're going to pick, and we're going to make our picks not knowing about Michael Pittman. So you mentioned Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he is going to have to be a part of the passing game this week if Michael Pittman is not ready.
Are you picking the Raiders?
If this were Friday, I would be picking the Vegas Raiders. I would. In an ugly game where they kind of what they did to Pat Mahomes and company, and that is just make life hell for Gardner Minshew. That would be the way I viewed the game. And they can run the ball a little bit. We know the Colts struggle with that. Julian Blackmon, his first time, not being there this season, out for the next 4 weeks. Yeah, I mean, right now, especially not knowing Pittman, I would go with the Vegas Raiders.
Thursday night football this week, final one of the season, Browns and Jets. I think that sums up pretty much Thursday night football here this year.
Real quick, week 17, keep an eye on Panthers-Jaguars. One of their reporters for the Jaguars says, Jaguars are in must-win territory now. They lose Sunday to the Panthers, and both the Colts against the Raiders and the Texans against the Titans win. The Jaguars would be mathematically eliminated from the AFC South race because the Colts and Texans both can't lose week 18. So you're pulling for the Panthers.
Technically not must win, but I understand the importance for Jacksonville with that one there as they look ahead to week 18. All right, some college bowl games of note. I feel like we're starting to get into a little bit more of bowl season here. You've got Vatech and Tulane in the Military Bowl. I'm hammering the Green Wave.
That's your lock of the century.
Give me the points there. And then the Mayo Bowl. How do you not pick the state of West Virginia in a bowl game called the Mayo Bowl?
You think West Virginia, you think mayonnaise.
Literally. Now, as much as I want to see Mac Brown at 75 years old doused in mayo, you'd have to retire right after that, you would think. Louisville, USC of the Holiday Bowl, and then the Texas Bowl later tonight, A&M and Oklahoma State. Tomorrow we got bowl games in baseball venues. That would be the Fenway Bowl and the Pinstripe Bowl. We also get the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Absolutely love the trophy for that. Literally slots for the Pop-Tarts. And again, s'mores, brown sugar, greater than Andy Sweeney trying to appease the food pyramid and ask for the strawberry.
A guy on Twitter said cherry. Is cherry the original or is it strawberry that's the original? Scotty, I'm looking at Scotty like he would know. He's just the maestro of everything.
I think it's cherry and blueberry were the OGs.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I have I would like to give you an opinion and have a conversation about the bowl games. With all of the guys who are not playing in the bowl games, I have no idea to handicap any of the bowl games.
Correct.
Except for the college football playoff games. There we can have a conversation, but Ohio State is dealing with it.
Well, I mean, USC
Georgia's
is
dealing with
touchdown underdog to Louisville?
Yeah, USC's a touchdown underdog. I mean, their tight ends, I know their top secondary guys aren't playing. Caleb Williams isn't playing. Their top wide receiver is not playing for Louisville. I know their running back and their top two wide receivers, I believe, are not playing. So I have no idea. Is that Louisville's favored by a touchdown? Okay,
I think
good.
I
have no idea.
A few weeks ago, my lowercase goat of the weekend.
It was 2 weeks ago.
NIL deals need to include bowl games moving forward, and that's something I would like to see to try and get a little bit of this was the team that somewhat resembles what we saw in the regular season, and not a look ahead spring game to next year.
Bowl games have become more useless than if they're not playoff games. They're more useless now than they were before.
But the
that's
thing
saying
is,
something.
Teams and fans still celebrate them. I hear this Notre Dame fandom craze right now. Marcus Freeman needs this game to get to 10 wins on the year.
Oh, that better not be Jimmy Cook. He's not saying that, is he?
And I'm
is Jimmy saying that?
Fortunately, I haven't spoken with Jimmy about the Notre Dame. He's worried about his Chiefs right now.
Well, you better
more
be.
than anything. And then his Alabama Crimson Tide, and then his Duke Blue Devils,
and his
and
Ohio
his
State
Manchester
Buckeyes,
United,
and then
et cetera, et cetera.
Then Messi, yeah.
Pop quiz is next. Butler, pair of tickets, UConn game, week from Friday, 317-239-1070.
Guys, solve your ED today with an intimacy guarantee.
you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, so I don't know if Kevin Bowen will like me saying this, but or Scotty for that matter. I'm looking at the Pop Quiz. It's doable. The Pop Quiz is doable today. Scotty, would you agree with that? Yeah, I think it's doable
Scotty,
today.
any particular reason why?
I mean, for me, there's no back in 1934.
Okay. So
right, there's no NHL.
Is that an ageist comment by you there?
100% it is. It's 100% right.
Yeah,
there's no baseball.
I'm taking a glance at it as well, and I am thinking this is doable. Mark Dykton, you said pretty crowded phone lines?
Loaded phone lines. Yeah, they want the Butler tickets, I think. So.
Pair of tickets. Hinkle Fieldhouse, Butler, and UConn a week from
it's going to be a good game.
Friday.
It's going to be such a good game.
Indiana-Purdue will get back into action coming up on Friday as well. It's one more. I actually think Indiana, Kennesaw State's a team that made the tournament last year and was pretty competitive with Indiana when they met last year. But Eastern Kentucky for Purdue, and then they'll get back into Big Ten play. Butler's Big East through and through the rest of the year. They'll start back up here after the new year. All right, Andy Sweeney, a number 1 through 8.
Oh, goodness, you're going to make me do it. Let's go. Oh, man, let's go 4. Let's go number
Mark
4.
Dykton?
What? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin is on the line.
Hey, Austin.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Austin, you a Butler fan? Just called because you want free tickets? Love Hinkle? Any particular reason? Bored?
I'm an IU fan, but I like Butler too.
Okay. All right. I respect that here. Did you appreciate Mark Dykton, Stone Cold Steve Austin? Entry
Very
there?
much so.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Tyrese Halliburton had a WWE comment after the game last night.
Yeah, he's a huge WWE fan. I want him on a podcast and talk nothing about basketball.
It's like Booker T, No Way, and the Queen. Was that his comment, I believe?
Oh, you went Booker T.
Last night.
Did Booker T help run one of the? Isn't he like a higher up?
Yeah,
WWE
now he is,
or one of them?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think Tyrese met them.
Oh, did he? Okay,
I believe so.
They came through town. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Austin, who is the greatest player in Butler basketball history?
Gordon Hayward, of course.
There you go.
Future
My
Pacer
man.
for Kevin Bowen.
Austin, do you want Gordon Hayward on the Pacers?
I feel like at a certain time it would have been good, but now he doesn't really fit us right now, in my opinion. But
Austin, I think I'd rather have you, if I'm going to be totally honest. What do you think Austin's
I don't know
game's
about
like?
that, but
Sharpshooter in the corner?
Yeah. You know what? I'll take Austin as well.
You
You guys are making me like this close to being the Gordon Hayward guy. Like I'm like this close just to
It
pivot
just
against
doesn't
everybody
make
else.
sense.
Of course it doesn't. Austin, you ready to go? You ready to get a winner here? All right, let's start. Question number 1. The Pacers won last night in Houston. Who was the game's leading scorer? Was it Halliburton? Was it Sengun, Turner, or Van Fleet?
Who's Halliburton?
Austin, when I think of IU and Butler, as bad as this is probably for you, I think of Alex Barlow floater to beat the Hoosiers at Bankers Life. Were you there?
Yeah, that was rough. I wasn't there, but I was watching.
That was a rough one. Alex Barlow, now an assistant coach for Thad Matta. All right, before last night, Pacers had lost 6 of 7 after beating the Detroit Pistons on December 11th. Name the only team the Pacers had defeated during that slide. Wizards, Magic, Gordon Hayward's Hornets, or the Nets?
What are the choices again?
Wizards, Magic, Gordon Hayward's fearless, unstoppable Hornets, or the Nets?
I think it was the Hornets.
It's a good start. Speaking of the Pistons, Austin, they suffered an NBA single-season record 27th straight loss last night as they fell to the Nets in Detroit. Cade Cunningham led the Pistons with 41 points. It's the 10th time in his young career that Cunningham has gone for at least 30 points in a game. How many times have the Pistons won?
Turn on your radio, Austin.
Yeah, Austin, turn down your radio. How many times have the Pistons won in those 10 games where Cade Cunningham has scored at least 30 points? Is it 3? They've won 3 times? 2 times? 1 time? 0 times?
I'll go 0.
right, number 4 here. Austin, who's the youngest current head coach in the NFL? Is it Shane Steichen, Sean McVay, DeMeco Ryans, or Kevin O'Connell?
It's a tough one. What are the choices one more time?
Yeah, Steichen, McVay, Ryans, or O'Connell?
Let's go DeMeco.
How old are you, Austin?
41.
41, you said?
31.
31, gotcha. This guy was hired, honestly, younger than younger than Austin.
Yeah, he was. All right, final one. A year ago today, the first 60-20 triple-double in NBA history was recorded. Who finished with 60 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists in an NBA game? Was it Jokic? Was it Luka? Was it Giannis? Was it Ja?
Let's go Luka.
Man, Austin did he did good, man. He did very good.
Wow. All right, number 1, the leading scorer last night in Houston with 33 points.
It's easy.
Again, Gordon Hayward's fearless Hornets. They couldn't beat the Pacers.
That is correct.
0 for Cade Cunningham and the Pistons in wins, with Cunningham scoring at least 30. Luka Doncic was correct. The youngest head coach, though, in the NFL. Andy, he went with DeMeco Ryans. Of the 4 we listed, though, DeMeco Ryans actually the oldest.
I know. That's crazy. He's 39. How dare he? My birthday's July 22nd. His is July 28th, so we're pretty close.
Look at that.
So he's doing what he's doing, and I'm doing what I'm doing. The answer, though, is Sean McVay. Still, it's Sean McVay. 37 years old. He was 30 years old when hired by the Rams back
That is wild.
in 2017. It is wild. And I mean, they're a 6 seed. He's on our top 3 or 4 coach of the year as well.
Are they lurking?
Oh, I think they're lurking. Yeah, I think they are. Yeah. What other words would we use to describe them?
Well, it seems like there's a lot of stats that back up of when it's been Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Stafford together this year. Their offense is one of the best in the league.
Okay, so they play the Giants. I mean, so they'll win that game. Okay.
Yeah, they're.
This week. I'm just.
They're in all likelihood going to be.
I'm just saying.
a road wild card team.
They'll be 9-7, I believe. They'll beat the Giants this week, and then they go at San Francisco. And I guess the question will be, what's San Francisco going to be playing for? Right.
So you could get. Correct me if I'm wrong. If the playoffs started today, would we get Stafford at Detroit?
I believe we would, right? Yeah.
49ers the 1.
Yeah. Detroit's the 3.
Cowboys are the 2.
Yep. No, the Eagles are still
the 2.
The Eagles are technically still the 2. Yeah.
And then the 3 would be Detroit. Ooh, boy, that's juicy.
Oh, that is juicy. Yeah, because that has written off. I mean, the Lions have.
Do we slot that into the Monday night playoff game?
I like Dan Campbell, but the Lions smell like a team that is going to win that division for the first time in decades.
All right.
And then lose the first round of the playoffs to Matthew Stafford.
The NFC lacks a little juice to me, maybe because I just don't pay that much attention to it compared to the AFC, but I could get behind that one.
Oh, you're not turned on by Seattle and Geno Smith? That's not something you want to watch?
Can't say the battle
day
for
in,
the
day out basis?
Vikings-Packers or Mark's Bears getting the last playoff
Oh, the
spots.
Bears aren't getting anything.
Really doing a whole lot.
The Bears are still, if the Bears had 7 wins instead of 6, they would be in the hunt. But I don't believe they're in the hunt, are they? They're not on the graphic with just 6 wins?
They're in the hunt
What's
before
the
the
ifs
Browns
and buts
game.
If my uncle was, if my aunt was, blah blah blah. Yeah,
No.
something along those lines there.
Just looking at Caleb Williams and Drake May tape at this point.
You breaking down some tape?
Oh yeah.
You and Mike Lombardi.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Austin. Pair of tickets there.
Good
to
for him.
Butler
Man,
and
almost had
UConn.
the oil change.
I think we got 3 pairs left to do. We'll continue to do that here over the next week or so with Butler again back in action at Hinkle a week from Friday. All right, we'll do it one final time here.
Hey everyone, it's Jake from Payless Liquors. Charlie said sell it, so stop by one of
Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Final segment of the show. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back at it tomorrow. I know we're going to have Scott Agnes. We'll see exactly what else we have planned for you. Tons of Colts, tons of Pacers. Again, you miss any of our shows, any of the shows here at The Fan, check it out, 1075thefan.com. You can stream there as well. You see KB and all the different stories that are up there. And download the app. It's absolutely free. Take us wherever you may go this holiday season on the app or live at 1075thefan.com. I want to read this from Adam Schefter, and there's really, KB, there's no take to be had on this other than, no bleep. When people have nothing to do, they watch sports, and we watch the NFL and consume the NFL and football at a staggering rate. The Ravens and Niners had an audience of more than 27.2 mil in viewership. It's the second most watched Monday Night Football game in 27 years. It trails only the Eagles and Chiefs from Week 11. So in a 5-week span, Monday Night Football has aired its 2 most watched games in 27 years. And I've been trying to find it because usually I mark these things. CBS, and I'm blanking on which game they had, CBS was bragging as well that the viewership for their games, for their main game, was just through the roof, and they had the Nickelodeon broadcast.
That was fun.
Tied to that as well, which I know people watch.
Yeah, Chiefs Raiders was that one.
That's Chiefs Raiders. Yeah.
So next year we're gonna get Christmas Tuesday, Wednesday, Eve, and then day. Are we gonna get an NFL game?
Well, that's the big question.
Doesn't it seem too late in the season to kind of manipulate the schedule midweek?
It does, but these numbers combined with, and this is for my viewing, the NFL pushed the NBA out of the way for me much more. I would have watched the NBA.
I didn't watch one NBA play on Christmas Day.
Well, there you go. I mean, I usually would have not watched every single game, but I would have watched parts of all 5 games, and I found myself watching parts of probably 2 games.
Also, the wild Monday night stat of late, I think it's 8 straight underdog outright wins on Monday night.
Oh, wow.
The underdog has won
That's a good
8 in a row.
stat.
And again, we're done with Monday Night Football until, I guess, we'll get the one playoff game. But this week, the schedule will, again, have Jets-Browns Thursday night. We'll get a Saturday night game. That's Lions-Cowboys. So that's a big one coming up here on Saturday night. That is at 8:15. Then you'll have your normal Sunday slate. For Colts viewing purposes, the AFC South will also play at 1 o'clock. So you'll get Jags-Panthers, same time as Colts-Raiders. You'll get Titans-Texans, same time as Colts-Raiders. But the 4 o'clock games really matter for the Colts.
Right.
That is Steelers at Seahawks at 4:05.
It's a big game, too.
And then the big one is Bengals at Chiefs at 4:25. Sunday Night Football, no bearing on the Colts, Packers, and Vikings. But again, even if the Colts win their last 2, if they somehow are standalone with the standalone with the Bengals, they will not get in because of that head-to-head. So,
I think that's the game.
You want the Colts to win out.
That's the game,
And
KB.
then obviously you need Cincinnati to lose 1 of 2. Cincinnati then has Cleveland to close out the season.
Kansas City is favored in that game by 7. And I tell you, if Joe Burrow was playing and the Bengals were still 8-7, I wonder what that line would be, given how bad the Chiefs are playing. I mean, offensively, they look broken, but you gotta root for the Chiefs here.
Imagine saying at the start of the year, it's going to get Cincinnati, KC with 2 weeks to go, no Joe Burrow, maybe no Jamar Chase, and they're only a touchdown underdog.
And it's only a touchdown underdog. You'd say
that's a guaranteed double digit.
I mean, you would say it's what? It'd be 12. It'd be 13 and a half.
Right.
It'd be damn near 2 touchdowns. I'm with you. Mark, you going to stand for that Packers-Vikings game? Boy,
of course.
What a stinker on Sunday night after 9 hours of football. Get ready for the Packers and Vikings.
By the way, don't expect any NFL Christmas Day games. I guess they're NFL Executive Vice President of Media Distributions, Hans Schroeder, says don't expect it. They'll only schedule games if the calendar allows it around Christmas.
Gotcha.
So
no, that's good for the NBA.
I know the NFL is king, and they obviously will do anything for TV ratings. It just seems a little rich.
It's too late in the season to alter that much. It'd be like sending a team over to Germany week 17 or something like that, right?
The talk with the Brazil game for next year is the opener. To have it, a little buffer from a training camp preseason standpoint. Again, Matt Ryan on the call coming up to Sunday
Matty
for the
Ice.
Colts. So what game was that? Was that Tennessee? We had them.
It was, right? I think it was
I think
Tennessee.
so.
Yeah, your memory would be better than mine, but I believe you're
that's
right.
the big booth. You get Tiki Barber in there as well with Andrew Catalan. So we'll see if Matt Ryan can hop on the show at some point here later this week. Kind of a quiet night from a local sports standpoint. That's why we're gambling on bowl games, and we've got Tulane plus 10.5 in the Military Bowl.
Boy, Tulane better not be wiped out by that big Power 5 Virginia Tech team.
Coming up, the bad Hokies of Virginia Tech. And the Mayo Bowl later. Pray for the state of West Virginia with the Mayo Bowl. Thank you to Stephen Holder. Thank you to Alex Golden. Those podcasts up on the website. Everybody have a great Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The Colts today have given up 5 sacks.
The